Hi everyone, my name's Charlie and I've helped over 150 people win their PIP and ADP claims, and I received PIP myself. It doesn't matter whether you're doing a claim, a review, a mandatory reconsideration, or a tribunal, you need to understand these 12 activities because this is what they are assessing you against. You need to understand where you fit into this and why and how to communicate it to them. What I'm going to go through with you today is extracts from my book, How Not to Fuck Up PIP. Before we get into the activities, I want to remind you, never, ever just talk about your worst day. There are a number of specialists advising people to do this. If someone that you are talking to about PIP or ADP is telling you to do that, get the fuck away from them. Because if you only explain your worst day, for most of us, that means we're bedridden or trapped in our homes. If that's all you explain when you're going through this process, that would mean that every time you leave your home, you're basically a liar. You're being fraudulent. So never, ever only explain about your worst days. I always say to my clients, we explain our averages because we have to paint a picture of our lives. We have to understand what it's like being you. So as we go through this, I'd say have a notebook. If you've brought the book, then there's the free workbook that you get with it, so you'll be writing notes in that as well. Okay, this activity is only about preparing a basic meal with one ingredient. Loads of people mix it up and get confused and add in information on eating. It's not that. It's preparing a basic meal. So if you consider, for example, if you got broccoli out, you chopped the broccoli, you put it in the pan, you boiled it, you were able to confirm that it's cooked, you were able to then move the pan to boiling water safely and then get the broccoli onto a plate. That is what they consider preparing a basic meal. It's not cooking something from scratch like spaghetti bolognese or a curry. And they're not interested in anything to do with the oven. It's just using the top of the cooker or a microwave. So let's check out what they are assessing us against. The points. So this is the government points, and this is what they are looking at for preparing food. Now we're going to look at these, we're going to break this down and go through this, okay? But first of all, I want you to consider SCAR the line. Are you safe? Are you consistent and reliable? That's what they're interested in. A lot of people screw up this activity because many of us cannot safely prepare a basic meal. We do not prepare basic meals. So basically that's what we state. But then it doesn't help our process. It doesn't help where you are in the process, because with this activity, unlike the others, they don't actually care about our reality. They want to know, how would we manage if we were on our own? So if you don't prepare basic meals, make sure that you go through the rest of this guide to understand what information they want. And accept you are not going to get 8 points. This 8 points is for people that have had a severe stroke, for people that have severe dementia, that type of category. So let's keep it real. Everyone, every single human being that prepares a meal at some point burns themselves and cuts themselves. That is normal. When it comes to safety, from a PIP ADP point of view, they're interested in like severe danger. And is it happening like all the time? Are you at risk of harming yourself or others? Say, for example, if you've started a fire in the kitchen. That's the level of danger that they're interested in. Also, if you are dropping things often. Say, for example, you've got Raynaud's in your fingertips or your neuropathy. If you're dropping things, you definitely need to include that because they will want to know. So what they're trying to figure out is, how often do you actually prepare a basic meal? You need to know your averages and just be honest. And how you would manage if you're on your own. Because let's face it, we're in the UK, you're watching this video. If you have someone that prepares meals for you and they're not around, you're not going to starve. You will find a way. That's what they want to know in this activity. Before we go back to the points, I want to ask you a few questions. Last week, how many meals did you actually prepare? How many times did you actually heat up food in the microwave? How did you feel before you actually went and prepared the meal, whilst you were doing it, and afterwards. How did you feel? It's important to be self-aware about this. So let's go back to the points. So let's look at prompting. Do you need to get reminded, nagged, encouraged to actually prepare a basic meal? D is for people that are diagnosed with mental health conditions, people that are neurodivergent, anyone with cognitive challenges like dementia or learning disabilities. The prompting doesn't count for those of us with physical conditions only. If you do only have physical conditions and you are getting prompted, make sure you explain that, because you need to paint the picture of your life, but accept that you won't get the points here. So let's talk about supervision. Do you need someone to be with you when you're preparing a meal to keep you safe? That's basically what that's going to be. Now, if that's a yes, I would expect you to have very clear evidence to back this up. And this would be someone with a specific level of autism or learning disabilities. Or it could be someone that's potentially at risk of self-harming. When it comes to assistance, this could be, say, for example, if your hands are severely affected by your condition, so you're not able to chop anything, and when it comes to preparing a basic meal, you do teamwork with your partner or a family member or a friend, that's where you would fit into this category. And again, to get these 4 points, you would need very strong evidence. I do see them give these 4 points though. When it comes to using an aid, this descriptor is for people with physical conditions. So they'd want to know what aids you use and why. And this could be that you need to sit down because of fatigue or pain levels. It could be that you've got wider grip utensils because of hand pain, a no-touch kettle like what I've got, because there's no way I could lift a boiling kettle. I've scolded myself so many times, it's just too high risk. I'm not safe. Things like jar openers, tin openers that for us when we've got hand issues. Right, this one, a lot of us fit into the category where if we needed to, we would microwave, or probably a couple of days a week we do use a microwave. I've literally got a microwave beside my laptop because I'm trying to figure out my own preparing food so I can actually have warm food. I'm just going to be honest with you here. I've never seen them give the points for this, because generally I think they could remove this, because I find that people either fit into the physical category and they're using an aid, or they fit into the mental health cognitive neurodivergence category and get prompted. So even though we explain this when I'm working with my clients, they tend to fit into either B or D more cleanly, if that makes sense. Right, I'm going to give you some examples of how you could explain your life. Don't forget, what is critical to winning is what I call PIP gold. The way you say it, the way you explain things about how you feel is the right way. I never put examples of PIP gold on social media, because every person I work with, they say something I've never heard before. And from my point of view, that is how the DWP can tell if someone's telling the truth. Because the way people explain it, it blows my mind that I just either didn't think of it that way or I didn't understand it that way, because it's unique to them. So obviously don't just copy the examples I'm giving you. It's got to match your life. So a crap example would be something like, I sometimes use a microwave because I feel very tired and I'm in pain. That's just crap. That's not enough. That's just crap. A good example, so for people that have physical or pain conditions, a good example would be, my mum prepares all meals for me. I have to sit on a chair in the kitchen because of neuropathy in my feet. I can't stand for very long. I also have chopping aids because of the neuropathy in my hands. I struggle to grip things and I drop things often. Done. That's it. Really simple. Good evidence for this activity would be photos of any aids you use. So if you've got a seat that you sit on in the kitchen, take a photo of it. Make sure you watch my guides on evidence, because obviously there's other evidence you need to put in with your claim or whatever level you're at. But I'm just talking about this activity. Common mistakes people make with the preparing food activity. Talking about eating. It happens all the time. Claiming 8 points because they actually Like when we say, and I did this when I first did my PIP claim, I was honest and said, I can't prepare a meal. But not understanding that those points are for people with horrendously severe um, physical limits or cognitive limits, okay? And that we've got to explain how we'd manage if we were on our own. Chatting about the oven, which they don't care about, or talking about things that are not relevant, like using a ninja, things like that, not relevant. Make sure you watch the guides I've got on what counts as an aid, what doesn't count as an aid, because we haven't got time to go into it here. The other big mistake that people make is waffling bollocks and them not being able to figure out what your life is like. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to re-show you the points, and then I'm going to highlight the key areas by groups of conditions. Let me show you. So if you have a physical condition, you would potentially score in B, C, or if your conditional conditions are really severe, potentially E. If you're struggling with your mental health, you would potentially score in D. In very severe cases where there is risk of self-harm, you could score in E. For people with neurodivergence or learning disabilities, could be D, and for severe conditions, E. For fatigue-dominated conditions, you could potentially score in B for using an aid needing to sit down. Remember, only you can figure this out. Yeah, that's just a guideline. In summary, this is only about cooking a basic meal on the top of a cooker or in a microwave, not a gourmet meal, something very simple. Remember that they don't like to give the 8 points. They want to understand how you would manage because we wouldn't starve. And safety means real risk, not the odd cut or burn. Okay, done. Eating and drinking, taking nutrition, is about the ability to get food and drink to your mouth, swallow it without choking on your own. Okay, it is not about preparing food. It is not about making sure you eat a certain amount of vegetables. Okay, so don't get sidetracked. Let's have a look at the points. So this is what they are trying to assess us against. I just want to cover off 2 really easy ones. So this is, have you got a feeding tube? So no grey area on this. And then if yes, do you need assistance to be able to manage that feeding tube? Really simple. So most of you are going to be able to go, right, I'm not C or E. So let's talk about prompting. Now, this is for, when it comes to prompting, it's always throughout the whole 12 activities, it's always people with mental health conditions, neurodivergence, cognitive conditions, learning disabilities, okay? However, I work with quite a few parents, right? And quite a lot of them that I work with have autistic children that are close to nonverbal, where they can say odd words, but only in the comfort of their own home, only with people they feel really comfortable with, right? And a number of those children, I say children, but they could be any age, a number of those children would not eat if the parent did not place the food in front of them in the right format, like the food not touching, only certain types of food, or some parents have to put it in the child's hand, or they wouldn't eat. They just would not eat. Get this, they don't get given 4 points for prompting. Okay, so if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, I suffer from depression and I need prompting to eat, or I won't eat, or I've got ADHD and I just forget. I'll focus on something and I just forget. You're not going to get the 4 points. Okay, the times where I've seen the 4 points given is where someone has been medically underweight. So, for example, you have an eating disorder, but you're currently a healthy weight. They're not going to be interested. Okay, still explain it. You have to explain your life, but I just want you to understand you're not going to get the points. So don't plan for them, right? I very, very rarely see them give these 4 points because they don't like to, the points never match your life. I've got other guides on that, so watch that if you're not familiar with that. So again, if you do get prompted, explain it, but do not expect points. Obviously, if someone needs full care, then they would be this. Okay, but I'm thinking if someone's 10 points, then you probably haven't. The people that are helping that person don't need to watch this video because it should be really obvious that they're entitled to PIP. Right, this is where some of you might be entitled to points. I don't know why it's highlighting that bit as well. Right, using an aid. So this could be chunky cutlery. It could be plates with like edges so that when you try and scoop the food off, it doesn't slide off the plate, like non-slip mats. I have like, I don't use normal plates. I don't use like china plates because they're too heavy and it's just, I drop stuff, okay? So I have like pots with lids. So if I drop it, it's absolutely fine. And I do drop them. I'm going to drop it. When I work with clients, I do tend to find that some people score here and they don't realise it. So I want you to think about, are you using a knife and fork normally? Do you use a knife and fork? If no, why? Have you sort of got to the point where someone's preparing meals for you and they're preparing meals that do not require a knife and fork? Have you naturally adapted so that you're actually having meals that are what I would count as scoopable? You can either use a fork or a spoon, so you're not having to ask someone to cut your food for you, or you're not having to use chunky cutlery. You've got like a special spoon and fork that you prefer, and then you've changed the food that you're eating, or you're eating food that you can pick up. So you need to figure that out because you need to then be able to explain it to them. Because lots of us do not want to ask someone to cut our food for us. Like there's loads of foods that I just won't eat because it's too painful and I don't have the energy to use a knife and fork. But I'm not using a knife and fork. So I just avoid those foods. Have a think about what your life is, okay? Or what your life has become. Because we adapt. That's the challenge. We adapt. So this is your norm. You don't even realize it because it's your norm now. That's why this process is so fucking difficult. And obviously because we're embarrassed as well. We don't want to be like this. I do recommend, my chunky cutlery is amazing. If you've got hand issues like neuropathy, Raynaud's, arthritis, try the chunky cutlery. Oh, it's such a relief to have it. It's amazing. I've got links in the description for aids that I recommend that are on Amazon. Yeah, so you could just have a look at that. Supervision. So, for example, you have got something going on with your throat muscles and you choke. You choke. So you need someone to be around when you're eating. Or, for example, you have an eating disorder, or without someone there with you, you're not going to eat. Okay. This one I already briefly mentioned about cutting up the food, and I like it. Or say, for example, you're a parent watching this for a child that has learning disabilities, and you need to cut the food for them. You need to prepare the food in a certain format for them. That's where they would score. Okay. Just so you can see, this is the things that I use. So I recently, now I'm trying the microwave next to my laptop. I've got this plate because it's really lightweight and it's just great. But these are the pots that I love, and these are great for opening things. This is great for opening tins. So these two things would be in preparing food. But you know where I said people mix up preparing food and eating? Well, I mixed up the photo for the book. So I was like, let me give you an example of how you could explain your life. I'm going to give you a bad example first. My condition varies. So sometimes I struggle to use the oven because I've burnt myself. My conditions mean that I'm in pain all the time and I just don't feel hungry. My husband always tries to get me to eat vegetables every day. I'll give you another bad one. I haven't got motivation to eat healthy food, so I just eat crisps and biscuits all the time. And I've gained weight because of this. My mum makes sure that I take my vitamins every day to make sure I'm getting the right nutrients because I'm just too tired to eat. Right, a good example, I have Raynaud's, so my fingertips feel numb and get pins and needles in them. I can't use a knife and fork because of this, so my daughter has to cut my meals. So my daughter cuts my meals up for me when she prepares them. Do you see how that's nice and clear, fact-based, with the conditions? It clearly explains to them in a way that they're assessing, and it is easy to evidence because there will be diagnosis of Raynaud's. Yeah, so that leads us on to evidence suggestions. So obviously photos of any age you use, like what I did. And then it will be medical letters. And obviously, if you've got a feeding tube, make sure you photograph that as well. Common mistakes is chatting about preparing food or nutrients and vegetables and stuff like that. They're just not interested. Not understanding that they don't like to give the 4 points for prompting here, that it's different criteria to all of the other activities when it comes to prompting. Remember my non-verbal autistic clients, yeah? They don't get it. Misunderstanding the cutting food bit, because you've adapted so that you're now having meals that you do not need cutting for because you can't use the cutlery, knife and fork every day. Yeah, you need to explain that. A lot of people screw this up because they think, well, I do eat, so I don't get any points. They just don't understand what we're being assessed against. So let's have a look at possible scorings based on the way I've grouped conditions. So physical conditions could be using an aid, or it could be potentially assistance. With regards to severe mental health conditions, could be D. So potentially for eating disorders, it could be the supervision. Rarely, it could be D. So neurodivergence, cognitive learning disabilities could be somewhere in B, could be D, or could be E in severe cases. Fatigue conditions could be using an aid or potentially assistance cutting up the food. So in summary, taking nutrition, eating and drinking is literally getting the food or drink to your mouth and being able to consume it without choking. It's not about shopping, it's not about eating your vegetables, it's not about preparing food, it's not about cooking. Don't forget, they don't like to give the points for prompting, and it's important to try and unpick what your norm has become to see if you do actually score here. That's done. Managing therapy or monitoring a health condition. Okay, this one is a bit of a nightmare. And to be honest with you, when I'm working with clients, I figure this out last. Okay, so I'm going to really try and cut the crap for you so you can figure this out. Short version, unless you've got a carer, most of you will only get 1 point here. All right, but we'll get into it. According to the DWP, their own words, this activity assesses your ability. I'm just going to read a quote, right? So I'm just going to look away from the screen. According to the DWP, this question assesses your ability to monitor any health conditions, manage medication, and manage treatments. So what does that actually mean, right? It's not about the time that someone helps you with washing, dressing, toileting, and all of that. It's not that. It is about how much time someone spends helping you, like encouraging you to take your meds, checking that you've taken your meds, that they're monitoring how you actually are. So say, for example, you suffer from depression and you can get into a really dark place, and your family members or someone is like monitoring you, and then if you're declining, they're trying to take steps to prevent you from feeling worse. Counts. So for example, you're a parent, your child is autistic but also diabetic, so you're having to monitor their safety and also try and figure out have they eaten, are they all right? That would count. So, for example, you're having physio, but it needs to be 2 of you to do it, not because you feel better that way, but because you need the second person. That would count. If you're having like dialysis at home, that would count. Remember Scar the lion? Thinking about Scar, are you safe? Are you consistent and reliable with taking your medication? Or are you missing it sometimes? That matters from a PIP point of view. I'm just going to be honest with you about skin conditions. This is me. I'm currently on biologics so that all my psoriasis is gone. This is when my skin looked good. I was spending 2 hours a day trying to maintain my skin with creams, shedding. It was fucking awful. I wouldn't score any points with that level of severity. So when it comes to applying creams and stuff like that, they're not really interested. I'm really sorry. You still need to be honest about your life, but just be prepared that they're not really interested. So this is about how long someone spends monitoring your conditions, your symptoms, to keep you safe. They are not interested in anything holistic like massage, acupuncture, vitamins, over-the-counter things. They're not interested. It's only prescribed by a medical professional, a doctor, or at minimum a nurse practitioner. The way they break it down is, apart from using an aid, which we're going to come on to in a minute, the way they break it down is basically by hours. It's just split into groups by hours. of how much time that someone supports you. So say, for example, you are having dialysis at home and you're having it twice a week and it takes 2 hours per time. Okay, that would be 4 hours a week. It doesn't need to be every day. You know that, Scott, safe, consistent, and reliable. It doesn't need to be every day for that type of treatment. Okay, you would add the hours together. But most of us aren't actually having treatment like that. Most of us is the support that you're getting, especially those of you with severe mental health conditions, severe depression. Your family, or if you've got people, if you're lucky enough to have people around you, are constantly monitoring you to try and keep you safe. If you're a parent with an autistic child, you're constantly monitoring them because you want to prevent meltdowns. You want to prevent burnout. It is very difficult to prove any of that. So again, prepare yourself for like 1 point. Don't mix in the time spent helping someone dress, eat, things like that. That's already allocated in the other activities. So again, stick to this is monitoring and therapy like physio and stuff and medication. Okay, I'm just going to read another bit about what the government actually says on this, right? So what we need to consider, what is meant by monitoring a health condition. This is a quote from their own procedures. Monitoring a health condition means the ability to recognise significant adverse changes in the person's health condition and take corrective action to implement treatment plans or modification as advised by a health professional. I get really frustrated because parents of autistic children, you're always doing it. If you've got a loved one that is severely depressed, you are always monitoring them, but they don't give the points. If you are a registered carer, make sure you include that because that is where you'll get the points. It's very difficult, this one. I get why it's difficult because if it wasn't so strict, it would be really open to abuse. So I get it, but it frustrates me that the people that are truly entitled to it will get 1 point, you know. But again, we are lucky to have this funding in place, so I'm not complaining. So let's check. Let's go through the points. So we're going to go dead simple. Right, do you use an aid? So these are what I use. I've got my pill pot, I've got my happy cow because, you know, it makes me positive. Obviously not relevant from a PIP point of view, but it just makes me happy. And I have a pill cutter because trying to break the pills because of the arthritis in my fingertips is very, very difficult. And I also struggle to pop certain pills as well. So when I get visitors, I ask them to pop pills for me. That's what I use. I do not score the points here because even though without my pill pot, I would 100% forget to take my meds. But because I don't suffer from depression or anxiety, I don't get the points here. However, I do score because of the hand issues. So say, for example, you're working and you're not diagnosed with, you don't have any hand issues and you're not diagnosed with depression, anxiety, even if you use this, even if you miss meds, you won't get the points here because they count that if we're cognitive aware, then we're fine. Even though I just, you know, I don't agree with that because I have many clients that are working, and if we didn't have our pill pots, we just would forget our meds. We still forget sometimes, but that's how the process, that's how the system works. So most people will fit into this one if you are getting prompted, reminded, someone's physically checking that you've taken your tablets, they're bringing you the tablets, they're trying to get you to take them, they're giving you the drink. Most people will be 1 point, even if someone's spending an hour a day with you. So you're actually the sorry, my mum lives there and she's like moving around with a big cushion. Oh, there's a big bee in her conservatory. And now she's swearing a lot, but the bee's safe. Have you seen the size of the bees right now? They're massive. Okay, right. Sorry, I forgot to say different types of aids could be alarms, spreadsheets, the easy to grip bottle openers because the bottles are sometimes a nightmare to open. The pill popper things like the pill cutter. So don't forget, if you do get prompted or need assistance in any way, make sure that you explain why and what happens if you don't get that support, like missing tablets, if that's the case. The supervision side of this could be for a variety of reasons, like if potentially you've tried to take your own life before, if the voices are telling you to not take your medication. So someone needs to like literally see you take the tablet or tablets, the medication. That's where the supervision could be in, or if like your risk of choking. It could also be that you're not aware that you decline. So it could be that someone is basically saying to you, look, you know, you've got a bit worse. I think we need to go back to the doctors. Yeah. So it could be that as well. So let's just skip to this one. Okay. We're going to skip to this one. This is basically if you've got a registered carer. So this isn't the you're the mum and you're like, yeah, I'm their carer. No, that's no. It needs to be formally registered carer. Okay. I'm not good at that stuff. I don't have knowledge on it, so you need to look into it separately. Okay. Then these is literally under 3 hours, between 3 and 7 hours a week, 7 to 14 hours a week. That's the only, those are the only differences between these. Okay. But again, they do not like to give these points. But you have to paint a picture. You need to just be honest about what your life is like. So if someone's spending on average an hour in the morning trying to get you to take your meds because you've either fallen asleep or you don't feel like what's the point, whatever the reason is, and then half an hour again in the evening because maybe you're more alert in the evening, you need to be honest about it. Yeah, just explain it, but understand they don't like to give the points. I'll give you a bad example of what sometimes people write something like this. My partner has to help me with my massager because of my leg muscles get cramps and get painful. They do this every day for me and make sure that I'm taking my vitamins because I struggle to eat because of my pain. And also because of my severe anxiety, they help me with breathing techniques every day. I'm just going to be honest with you, they're not interested in any of that. Okay, I know it's brutal. Make sure you watch the um, guides I've got on what counts as an aid and what doesn't count as an aid, okay, because the massage stuff doesn't count. I'm going to read an example that I actually wrote in the book of a good example, right? This is for mental health conditions. My wife has to give me my tablets 3 times a day, and she spends a few minutes each time trying to get me to swallow them in front of her. I know I need my tablets, but I hate taking them. Some days she just has to leave me alone as I get so angry. On those days, often I do not even bother taking the tablets. You know, it's the reality for some people. Make sure it's your reality, okay? So, evidence suggestions, your pill pot, your pill cutter, all that stuff that we talked about earlier. If you've got a carer, the carer's allowance letter. Letters from specialists, especially if you've seen a psychiatrist or clinical psychologist. Those are really good from a PIP point of view. I know I'm saying watch the other guides, but whatever you do, don't try and tell a medical professional what to write when it comes to PIP and ADP because it looks shit. Common mistakes, talking about crap that isn't relevant, not backing up your life with good evidence, swamping them with irrelevant evidence that just buries the facts. Wasting time on writing loads for this when in reality you're probably only going to get 1 point if you are entitled to something here. For the possible scorings, I'm not going to go through all that because it's going to be that 1 point for most people. But again, you need to explain about the reality of your life, or if you're doing this for your child, the reality of their life. I really recommend doing this activity last because it is a nightmare to figure out. And by the time that you've done the other 11 activities, you'll be so much more like solid on the whole PIP ADP assessment thing that it will just be clearer for you. And that's what I do. I never ever do this first when I'm working with clients. I don't even do it third. I do it last. It's always the last thing I do. And then by then, you can pretty much figure out where we're at. Don't forget, don't include the time that someone helps you with any of the other activities like dressing. It's not included in here. And the assessor wants information that's unique to you. Why aren't you safe, consistent, and reliable? Scar the line. Anything holistic, shop ball, massages, anything to do with sleep, not relevant. That one's all done. So this activity is purely about how you maintain your personal hygiene and if you shower or bath or use wet wipes like me. So let's check what they assess us against. So this is their points, okay? And we're going to go through these bit by bit. So just to confirm, people that score in this one are those people that have had, like, for example, a severe stroke, one side of their body is not functioning, they need full assistance. Okay. So they want to know how often we're bathing or showering or washing ourselves, how we actually manage it. So, for example, if your shower is in your bathtub and you shower, it's really important to explain the showers in the bathtub, because then you've obviously got to get your leg over the bathtub. And they split our body down into sections. Okay, let me just show you this very glamorous, amazing picture I did in software. Brace yourselves. Okay, so obviously the body, and they split it down into the descriptors. Okay, so our hair and our lower body is in descriptor D, and then the chest area is in F. Okay, that's how they split our body when it comes to washing and bathing. When I was doing the book, they were like, "Is this your design? Did you get this from somewhere?" I was like, "Oh my God, isn't it obvious that it's shit? It's obvious that I did this." That was the only hair I could get, so I actually quite like it. I've distracted myself with that drawing and I've forgotten where I'm at. Let me just check my notes. Okay. Oh yeah, don't obsess about washing your feet. Like, to be honest, when I was able-bodied, I don't ever remember massively scrubbing my feet when I was in the bath. Um, so, don't get too focused on that, obviously, unless it is a challenge for you. So let's talk about prompting. So like all the other activities within PIP and ADP, the prompting is for people with mental health conditions, cognitive issues, neurodivergence, okay? And they want to know how often you get prompted, why you get prompted, so make sure you explain that. In this one, we've also got supervision. So the supervision could be, say, for example, someone that suffers from epilepsy, if you're wobbly on your legs, if your joints dislocate, you could be in that category where you need someone to be there. Now, they don't need to be in the bathroom with you all the time. It could be that you've got the door like open so that they're there if you need them. Okay, you might not need them all the time. You just explain that. Anything to do with teamwork is really important from a PIP ADP point of view. So let's cover off this one. So hair or body below the waist. Remember my amazing drawing. So we're talking upper body, lower body, they group together. This is assistance when doing it. So someone literally washing your hair for you, someone washing your feet for you. Okay. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Charlie, keep talking about scar the line. Am I safe, consistent, and reliable? But I only have my hair washed like once a week, because that's the only time my family is available to do it. You just need to explain that. You need to be really blunt about that. And if you don't want to, if you're not doing it more because you don't want to be a burden, because you don't have to keep asking, just explain that. They are really good at understanding that we don't want to be a burden. So, where I keep talking about your averages, got to work out your averages, is like, on average, how often are you having a bath? Now, I do see some patterns, right? So I don't want you to be embarrassed about this, because when people do the PIP entitlement assessment that I have is paid product, and there's over like 200 questions, and then I go through it. And I have to, so for example, the washing and bathing, I can't just look at what people say for washing and bathing. I do exactly what the DWP do. And I look at everything holistically to then figure out where someone scores within washing and bathing. And you get like an outcome report highlighting the areas that you score in. Okay. Why was I saying this? Oh yeah, that's why I was saying it, right? Because what I find is whenever people do that PIP entitlement assessment, which has never been wrong, by the way, it's always been right on whether someone's standard, enhanced, or not yet entitled. What I find is whenever my clients get that before they do the meeting with me, and every single time when I do the meeting with a client, they'll answer something on the PIP entitlement assessment, and they'll be like, "Oh, you shower every 2 to 3 days." And then when I do the meeting, I go, "How often do you really shower?" Because this one, we just seem to be so fucking embarrassed. I want to explain to you, I used to work in logistics, and the goal for me was always to get to Africa. I was a humanitarian worker, so twice a year I'd go overseas, and I specialised in Africa. We are spoiled. We are privileged. It is not normal around the world to shower and bath every day. It's just not normal. It is massively first world culture. Okay? So my friends in Africa, many of them will never, ever, ever have a bath in their lifetime. they will never have a shower in their lifetime because water is more valuable than gold. You know, so they need to drink it, not just waste it on washing like what we do. Don't feel guilty about this. It's now, I'm filming this in April. I last had a bath, I think, in August last year, right? I use wet wipes. I do not smell. Having a bath is a nightmare for me. I have an aid, which I'll come on to when we do aids, but the aftermath is horrendous. I will lose days of my week to feeling much, much shitter, in much more pain than normal, much more brain fog, really crap night's sleep. I don't want it. I want to be able to do things like this. I do find that there seems to be a bit of a pattern where sometimes it's people are having a shower or bath every 2 to 3 days. Sometimes it's once a week. Sometimes for like severe mental health, it can be longer than that. Just be honest. They see this, like they see this information a lot, okay? It's critical that you're honest first with yourself and then when you're doing your PIP stuff, okay? If you're struggling to do your feet, make sure you explain why. Like if it's degenerative disc disease, say for example, you've got severe COPD, so when you bend forward, you can't breathe properly, just make sure you explain why. And then obviously that will link to your evidence, which you're going to watch the evidence guides I've got because that's really important, okay? Whatever level you're at, you must do the evidence, okay? So let's do this. Oh, shit. Let's do this one. So between the shoulders and waist, okay? I'm just going to go back to my amazing drawing because, you know, I put a lot of effort into this, to this bit, right? Now, I don't often see them give the points for this. Even when people have got dislocated shoulders or say cerebral palsy where one side of their body they struggle to use, they don't like to give the points here for this. They don't like to give the points for this. You would have to have extremely severe fact-based evidence for them to give you the points here. I would just be honest, but accept that you're not going to get those points. Okay, so let's talk about this one because there's probably quite a few of you that might get the points here. So say, for example, someone has to help you get in and out of the bathtub because that's where your shower is. And you're not able to have a bath anymore because you can't, if you lower yourself down, you probably won't go back up, right? They need to know why. So let's say, for example, you've got really horrendous arthritis in your right knee. And then, so when you step, it's when you're weight bearing on that right knee that it's really risky because it could lock, it could give way, whatever the reason is, okay? Make sure you're clear about it. Be very specific and be very specific on how that person helps you, including if they're helping you and you're holding something. Make sure you paint the picture of what's actually happening. When I work with clients and we go through it and I ask questions, I know exactly which hand is on what. I know exactly which leg is the issue, which leg is worse, and I can visualize it in my head. It's very important, especially for assessments and say for tribunals if they're asking you questions. So just before we move on this one, they are reasonable with those points. I do see those actually given quite often. Don't forget that when people book me, they don't come to me when they've got a boo-boo. People book me when their lives have been totally taken over by their chronic illness, okay? And obviously, because they're working with me, we evidence fuck out of it. Let's chat about, oh crap. I'm trying to be better at like using technology. Let me show you what I've got. I've got this bath chair. There's a link in the description on YouTube for this bath chair. It's just off Amazon. It cost me 250 quid. There are cheaper ones at Able World. This is not sponsored. It's amazing. I still don't have the energy because fatigue controls my life to do this, but I feel so safe on this. I do have a handle as well, but my mum doesn't like it fitted, even though she had a stroke. She doesn't like it fitted. And to be honest, with this chair, I tend to, when I'm getting it out, I use my assistant's dog because she's always in there with me. Don't you just like looking at that has just pissed me off a bit because I haven't had a bath for so long. I really would love to be able to have a bath, but again, I just don't. It's the aftermath. It's just so horrendous. It's just shit. I'm hoping to have a bath in the summer. That's my goal. Like my birthday's in July. I'm aiming to have a bath in July. I wanted to have one around Christmas time, but I got so sick I really declined. But I'm worse in winter. So fingers crossed, summer. So other aids. It could be that you're holding handles. It could be that you're holding part of the bath. It could be that you've got, like, some people have like windowsills. It's anything you're holding is the aid. If you've got something to do your feet, like if there's those feet cleaning things, if you've got a long brush thing, anything that's helping you achieve it. Obviously, if you've got a seat in the shower that you sit on, doesn't need to be a posh one. It can be anything if you're sitting on it, or a step. Some people have a little step on the um, outside of the bath to help them step in and step out because of getting their leg over, and maintaining balance. Okay, anything like that. And if you're a lot of people that I think watch my guides, we don't sort of get training on what aids are available, do we? Like, no one trains us on this. So if you're struggling, have a look at what aids are available, because the whole point of PIP and ADP is truly to keep us as independent for as long as possible. So if you can get something that makes it easier and safer for you, so you can actually do it more often, or you can do it like with less risk, try it. Make sure you're honest about the aftermath. So you know where I was saying, like, for me, it's days. It's horrendous. Um, which is why I don't do it, why I use the wipes. So be honest, especially if you're like me in pain and fatigue, they need to understand that. Some people, if you just need to rest for like half an hour afterwards, brilliant, I'm so happy for you. But still make sure you explain it, okay? Because obviously an able-bodied person doesn't. They just get on with their life, yeah. So I'll give you an example, a couple of examples of what you could write, okay? And again, don't forget, it's got to be unique to you. You want your PIP gold. How you say it is the right way. My conditions are really variable, so I never know if I'm going to be able to have a shower. I do try to sometimes have a shower, but I never know if it's going to be possible. It's rubbish. It doesn't explain anything, right? I'm going to read an example from the book, okay? Um, so this is for physical conditions, pain-dominated conditions. I have a shower once a week. My friend has to help me get in and out of the shower chair safely. I can wash my arms and upper body myself, but I need help with my hair below the waist because of my degenerative disc disease. After I have a shower, I'm always exhausted and I need to lie down for about an hour to recover. Very clear, explained the reasons why, explained how it's managed. I'll just give you a mental health example as well. I only shower about every 3 weeks, as there's no point in doing it because I don't go out. Really blunt, really simple, and sadly true for quite a few people. So evidence suggestions, obviously any photos of aids. So what I try and do when I'm working with clients is just take one photo. So for example, we'll go back a bit and take a photo of show that the shower is in the bath, and then whatever it is the person's holding. And say, for example, they've got a long handled brush as well, we'll make sure that's in the same photo. Because, if you haven't watched the evidence videos yet, maximum of 13 pages. That includes your diagnosis, your current medication, specialist letters, and photos. We're not swamping them with irrelevant crap. Okay, so we're going to be efficient. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading the bit of the book. So I've literally got the book in front of me as I'm going through this. And I've written things like about, people writing too much. And I've written, so when it comes to writing your answer, I put, with your answer, skip the saga. This isn't Twilight, for fuck's sake. I proper had a laugh when I was writing those bits. I've tried to do one in each of the activities where I'm trying to give people the reality check of stop fucking waffling bollocks. Okay, common mistakes. Being too embarrassed to actually tell the truth about what your life has become. Please, please remember my Africa story on how privileged we are and the reality that I haven't had a bath for like, was it 8 months? And writing too much crap, burying the facts. People only take in 10% of written information, which is why we're cutting the crap. So let's look at possible scorings, the way I've grouped the conditions. My chair's on wheels. I don't know why it was so hard for me to shuffle then. So for physical conditions, potentially needing an aid, potentially needing help with the hair or below the waist, even assistance in and out of the bath or shower, And very rarely, because again, even if this is your life, explain it, but very rarely do I see them give these points. Okay. So quite a lot for physical conditions, quite a lot potentially for physical conditions, sorry. Mental health, cognitive challenges, learning disabilities, potentially this one, if you're getting encouraged and or supervised. You know, I said about the neurodivergence, learning disabilities. I've worked with some people where balance is affected, coordination, so could potentially be that as well. And then, you know, to get in or out, to get in or out safely. Okay. And then for some very severe cases where they're just not don't understand to wash under their arms and the process, so you do that for them, could be here. Okay. Even those clients, we don't get the 4 points. Okay. So make sure you watch the videos about why they don't give the right points so that you manage your expectations, okay? So long as you get the right level of funding, we're happy. So say, for example, you're enhanced. As long as you get enhanced, it's okay. Don't worry that the points don't match your life. So in summary, this is only about washing and bathing. This isn't like grooming. They want to know exactly how you manage the task. And they're looking for details that are unique to you, how you feel, what your pain feels like, what your fatigue feels like, why you do the strategy that you do. You need to be brutally honest. Okay, I'm sorry, it sucks. You've got to be brutally honest about your life. I do find they're really understanding with this one. They are really supportive, okay? And don't forget, if you've adapted, your evidence will back this up. So many people screw this one up for a couple of reasons: embarrassment and not understanding how incontinence scores within the assessment process. Okay, so definitely watch this full guide because you might score. A lot of people are really surprised that they actually score here. For example, if when you get up off the toilet, you're holding on to something to get up, like for example, towel rail, sink, windowsill, whatever it is you're holding, the edge of the bath, that counts as an aid. Okay, so just keep watching so we cross check. Okay, let's have a look at what they assess us against. Let's check out the points. Okay, so this is what they're trying to figure out. Now I just want to clarify these bits, okay, so you understand what they mean by bladder and bowel. So my first career, I actually wanted to be a nurse, so I have a level 5 in continuing care. It's very, very out of date. So for me, this is common language, but let's clarify. Bladder is wee, number 1, pee, urine, piddle, whatever you call it, okay? Bowel is feces, poo, diarrhea, stool, not the one you sit on. Could be you could call it fecal matter. If you call it like a shit, a dump, a crack, not crack, frap. I would just use a bit slightly nicer wording when you do it, even though I'm constantly like how you say it's the right way. I would say a bit, I wouldn't write shit. And number 2, emotion. Those are some words you could use, okay? Right, this is really important. I see people get so angry about this and my heart breaks for them because they don't understand how the assessment works. If you are having accidents, it could be diarrhea and urine, could be bladder and bowel. And it's an absolute nightmare. It's totally fucking with your life, right? You're not going out. It's awful. You know, it's a nightmare. Okay. But no one is helping clean you, actually wipe you clean. If you are cleaning yourself, you do not score highly in this activity. I'm thinking if you're having accidents at that level, you're wearing pads, okay? You would score 2 points for using an aid, which is the pads. But there seems to be this misinformation that if you're having lots of accidents, that you score really high. You do not, unless someone is wiping you clean, okay? They are not interested in someone changing your bedding. They are not interested when we do teamwork and someone's helping you take the pad off, is tidying the bathroom after you. If you've got explosive diarrhea, someone's having to tidy the bathroom after you. That doesn't count, okay? So it's really important that you understand it. And if you fit in this category, I'm really sorry, I'm really happy for you that you are cleaning yourself, that you are still fiercely stubborn as fuck being independent. I'm just sorry that you're going through those types of accidents. Okay. Now, the other thing where people screw it up is where they go, oh, I do sometimes need help. Don't use the word sometimes. And then I'm like, okay, how often? About once every 6 months. No. Remember SCAR. Are you safe, consistent, and reliable? If you're having an accident, even if it was like once a month, that's sort of rare. It's not your daily life. It's not your current daily life. So you wouldn't score there either. Okay. You need to explain it, but make sure you say how often it is, because it will help your case. If like they so appreciate honesty. So if you say, like, for example, I will come on to examples in a bit, but so for example, you wear a pad because you have accidents, and then like you could say, I have to wear a pad because I experience incontinence. About once a month, I will have double incontinence, both, and my husband has to help clean me. But normally, I'm able to clean myself. They will appreciate that. It will really help them understand that, oh, they're being really honest here. Okay, so let's talk about aids. Let me show you one of mine. So the frame around the toilet counts as an aid. By the way, in your evidence, you do not need to do what I've done here and take a photo of yourself on the toilet with the frame. I did this for a specific video, and I also did it because so many people do not score here because they're so embarrassed. And I'm like, fuck that. If we are struggling, we need to be honest. I will not be ashamed of the fact that I have issues going to the toilet because of my chronic illness. I'm not going to be embarrassed about it. Don't get me wrong. I'm 19 years into this, so for well over a decade, I've blocked. Like for me, to clean myself after a bowel movement is a nightmare. Quite often, I'm not able to do it in one sort of wiping session. I have to have a rest, and then I have to go back, and then I have to keep cleaning. Okay. I also have a commode as well. By the way, this is Boss the cat. He loves sitting on my lap when I'm on the toilet. He purrs his head off and dribbles a bit because he's really happy. Also, notice the towel rail. So there are times where, for me, lifting my arms up, I'm not going to do it because it's just going to hurt me even more. So I can't reach up and grab that to pull myself up because it would trigger my shoulder pain severely. So I need to sort of push to get up. Okay. And then I have a commode as well. So different types of aids. There's like a bottom buddy. Um, I do explain about wipes if we're using wipes, but to be honest, so many able-bodied people are using wipes that they don't really count, but still explain. If you're using a Lota or a bidet for cultural reasons that you were using before you were chronically ill, it won't count. Okay, so just understand that. So don't forget, it could be like your radiator, your windowsill, anything you're using to get yourself up, and obviously pads. So in this one, you need to know on average how many accidents you're having a week. So don't forget, it could be like, you could be like, yeah, but Charlie, it goes in like phases. Sometimes I could go a couple of weeks and not have any, and then I could have 5 in one day. You need to try and work out an average. The assessors, it's easier for them if you can do a weekly average or at least a monthly average. And they understand it's an average. Like you could be be honest and be like, exactly what I just said there. Like sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's none. So, it's probably around 3 a week, like whatever it is for you, and why. So is it that you're not getting to the toilet in time? Is it urge incontinence? Is it your poor little rectum's not working right? Whatever the reason is. I will say, in my experience and my clients' experience, which is over 200 people now, they're really lovely when it comes to toileting. They are much better at being supportive about this one than they are, I feel, mental health conditions. Like they are so much better. Like PTSD, they're not, and complex PTSD, they're not as good as what they are at supporting people when discussing toileting. So in my experience, I promise you can be honest with them about this. and they will support you as best as possible. Sorry, just other aids could be stoma bags, irrigation kits, catheters. Okay, all of that would count as an aid. So let's talk about prompting. Now, it doesn't count if it's, oh yeah, I need to be reminded before I go out. That's not what it is. This is daily basis, current daily life. Okay. So for the prompting, it needs to be why. I've never seen anyone with ADHD get the points here for prompting. The prompting that I tend to see here is more people with contamination OCD, where the prompting is more your hands are clean, you've cleaned them, try and stop washing your hands. It's more that side of things where I see the prompting points. Supervision could be, for example, if your child is autistic or has learning disabilities and you need to make sure that they have cleaned themselves. Or the supervision could be like if you have blackouts, if you lose consciousness, or if you're very, very wobbly. Again, this prompting supervision, it would need to be really stunning evidence to actually get these points here. Okay, so needs assistance. In my experience, this is where people need assistance to get on or off the toilet. Like, say, for example, one of your legs or your legs just go dead after you've been on the toilet for a bowel movement, and then you can't physically get up. You need assistance to actually get up. Or obviously it could be assistance in cleaning yourself. If you're not able to wipe yourself clean and someone does that for you, that would be assistance. So you need to be really clear as to why you have that. And again, if you're in this category, you will have evidence as to that condition that's caused it. Right. So the ones where that are really big scorers, which I'm hoping you're not in these categories. If you are, I'm thinking of you. So this one is if someone helps clean you because of either bladder, wee, urine accidents, or bowel. So the number 2, poo, diarrhea. It's if someone is helping clean you because of one or the other, not both. Okay. If you have accidents that involve both, it's 8 points where someone is helping you clean yourself. Okay. Not the bedding, not the bathroom, actually helping clean you. Okay. Would be 8 points. And again, if you're in this category, you will have a very clear condition, clear diagnosis that will back up this. And probably as well as the whatever's causing the incontinence, I tend to find that people also have another physical condition on top of it. So whatever's causing the incontinence, and then, for example, they have really severe arthritis, so they're trying to stand up, but their right knee's giving way. You know, it's very challenging for them, and that is why they score these points. And for those clients, it's the only time where someone's like, okay, fantastic, because it's so clear, it's so easy to prove that I'm like, no, this is brilliant from a PIP point of view. Obviously, I'm gutted for you. Yeah, it's the only time. There are many times in meetings with clients where I'm like, that's amazing, that was stunning, that was amazing, that's PIP gold. I'm really gutted for you. But it's amazing how you explained it. Now, when you have accidents, I want you to be clear about what it's like for you. Is it a leak? Is it a dribble? Is it a tsunami? Is it an explosion? Does it happen when you trump? Like, you know, because if someone just says, I have an accident, that could be a dribble the size of a 50 pence piece. Like, you know, so someone could say they've got fatigue. I say I've got fatigue. My level of fatigue is I get it so bad I cannot physically move my head. I've had it so bad that I'm just going to be really blunt with you, and we are on toileting, okay? I was in bed. I desperately needed to change my Tampax. I couldn't move. So for 5 hours, it took me 5 hours before I could get the energy to move because my fatigue is that severe. Obviously, right now, I'm filming when I'm better. I don't, obviously, there's no way I could fucking film something when it's that bad. But that is normal life for me. That happens to me, not the Tampax situation, but it happens to me where my body won't work. Because for me, I have a severe form of arthritis called psoriatic arthritis, and I'm in the 5% of people that have complex. It's the fatigue that controls my life. The pain, I can take pain relief. Doesn't get rid of the pain. I can still take pain relief. But being trapped, not able to get to the toilet for something as simple as having a wee, and then, it's the aftermath when you can't get there. It's horrendous. But again, we have to just be honest about it. And by the way, for me, I went through a phase of having accidents, but I'm actually doing really well. So now I'm just 2 points for using the aid. By the way, I'm sorry, I'm just reading the bit in the book. I wrote, poo that escapes when you have wind. I do find when working with blokes, like blokes, that when they explain how that accident happens and they come up with their PIP gold, sometimes I've literally, the way they say it, snorted with laughter. It's just the way they say it is just such amazing PIP gold, and they just say it. It's just brilliant. How you say it is the right way. Honestly, they're amazing. They're amazing. I do tend to find that females tend to be a bit politer about it, a bit more gentle about how they explain it. But we need to be brave, because I kid you not, the amount of times where I've worked with people and once they've done the PIP entitlement assessment, so I can see where they score, then we do the meeting. The meeting's really the PIP gold, and then I can tell from their when they do the entitlement assessment, it's available on the website if you want to book it. And they get the report. I can tell from that if there's some areas where I know they score, but they don't think they score, and the way they answer, because we block. We don't want to be a burden. That shows when people do the PIP entitlement assessment. And then we need to figure out their PIP gold. But the toileting one is one where so often, and I get messages from people, or like from the newsletter that I do, where they're like, they just didn't know that they were 6 points. They didn't know. So it's the embarrassment. I am fucking refusing for you to suffer in silence if you're entitled to this funding because of this category due to embarrassment. We're going to be brave. We're going to communicate. We're going to be honest. I'm sorry it sucks. Which leads us on to leaking stoma bags. Right. So, let me blow my nose. I've worked with quite a few people where their stoma bags are leaking. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because I've got experience with stoma bags, not on me, on assisting other people. And they were amazing. Colostomy bags, yeah? They were amazing. When I first worked with someone that had a leaking bag, I kept questioning him because I'm like, no, something's not right. And what it was scar tissue. So where you seal the stoma bag against you, there's scar tissue. So the stoma bag doesn't seal properly. Now, there are other things that you can get. Like you can get like a little sort of net thing that you hold to try and hold it in place that you wear, like a boob tube, but to go over the stoma bag. So with clients like that, what I do is we photograph the scar tissue. Okay. Now this is really important because if you're out and about and your stoma bag leaks, it's not subtle, is it? People will be able to smell it and potentially see it staining your top. It's for those of you that experience that, I understand that you'd be mortified by it. So that's really important if you're experiencing that. If you haven't already discussed it with your nurse, make sure you do try the alternatives, okay? Again, there's loads of people that have stoma bags where they're just amazing, okay? But if you are having leaks, you definitely communicate it, okay? And do that evidence, right? So let's do examples of what you could write. So we'll do a bad example. I have accidents because of diarrhea when I'm reacting to my medication, and I have to have help from my husband. He needs to take the clothes away and bag them up and then rinse them and put them on a separate wash, change the bedding, and check that I'm okay. He will then make sure that I've got the clean pads and a fresh set of clothes. Okay, that's not like I just talked about stuff that's absolutely not relevant. The clothing, the washing, the bedding, bringing clean clothes, none of that is relevant. Not in there did I explain how often it happens or if he actually helps clean her. Give you a nice, simple, good example. When I get up off the toilet, I have to hold onto the towel rail because of neuropathy in my feet. Evidence suggestions, obviously the photo of anything that you're holding or any aids you're using. Use one photo. So say, for example, you're wearing pads, you're also holding the towel rail, and you use a bottom buddy to clean yourself. Put all three things in one photo because we don't want loads of photos. Okay, we want one photo explaining it. And don't forget to explain what's unique to you. Like if you're not able to get off the toilet or why you're pulling yourself up, you know, explain about how the pain feels for you. What does it feel like? What's your balance like? Common mistakes, the misunderstanding about if someone's helping you with bedding and clothing, that you're entitled to high points when you're not. Most people not understanding that when you get up off the toilet, if you're holding on to something, pulling yourself up or steadying yourself because you balance and everything, that is an aid. Biggest problem with this is embarrassment. Not being honest about how many accidents you're having and how you manage. Thinking that having an accident like once every 3 months, that where you do need assistance to help you clean, thinking that means you're going to get high points when you're not. It's daily life. Yeah. So let's look at the possible scorings by groups of conditions. So physical conditions could be using the aid. In severe cases, if you're having assistance because of either a bladder or bowel accident, or you're having regular assistance because of both bladder and bowel accidents where someone is cleaning you, you could be E or F. Mental health conditions, for example, the OCD could be the prompting, but only in severe cases. For some learning disabilities or severe autism could potentially score in any of these areas. But for ADHD, just forget about this one. Fatigue dominated conditions could be B, using an aid. So in summary, it's not just about incontinence, it's about using aids as well. You only score really high if you rely on someone to clean you. Don't forget the DWP, they don't care about your bedding, the clean clothes, or cleaning the bathroom. This activity is simply about how often and how you get your clothes on and off. Okay, really nice and straightforward. Let's have a look at how they assess us. This is their descriptors. So we're going to go through all of these bit by bit. Let's start with prompting, this one, CI. Okay, I'm sorry it highlights that a bit as well, just ignore that. So this is for people with mental health diagnosis, so severe depression, for example, or it could be someone who's autistic or has learning disabilities. I'm really hoping that you can't hear Matilda barking. I'm sorry if you can. So this is someone basically trying to encourage you, nag you to change your clothes. Yeah. If you're sleeping in your clothes, make sure you explain that, okay? And obviously you need to put in your averages. Now, this one, prompting or assistance to select appropriate clothing, this is for people with autism. So say, for example, it's raining really hard, and even if they do understand it's raining, but they're still not putting on the right clothing, or they just don't understand that when it's raining, you have to wear this type of clothing. So you need to make sure that they are wearing that clothing. That's where they would score here. Okay, so for either of these two, oh, God, I'm crap at this. For either of these two, you need to be explaining the why, how often this is happening, and why you're not changing your clothes. Yeah, and again, just you've got to be honest about how often you are actually changing your clothing. A lot of people feel really embarrassed about this one. You need to be honest. So for example, for me, I've been recently stuck in clothes for like 5 days because of severe fatigue because I was so unwell. I declined so hard. Now I'm probably averaging being able to put on clean pajamas every probably 4 to 5 days a week at the moment. I'm doing really good. Really good. I'm really happy. So if you get stuck in your clothing, where I was like, I'm really happy that I'm managing to do it so often. I am getting it where I've got enough energy in the morning, so I'm changing my clothes. But then later on, if I am pushing myself to get out of pajamas and to wear something more fitted, like right now I'm wearing thermal leggings, I've been stuck in them because I decline hard and then I can't get out of them on an evening, so I have to sleep in them. And that actually messes with my head more. So I would have been better off not pushing myself. So again, we just have to be honest about what our reality is, which is the hardest thing, is being honest with ourselves. So let's look at the body areas that they break down. So let's go with lower body. Socks can be evil. Evil motherfuckers socks. Like trying to get those on when your knees and your hips aren't working. This is obviously physical conditions. Yeah, this is not to do with depression or anything. This is physical conditions. So for those of you with spinal issues or lung issues, that when you're going forward you can't breathe, neuropathy, trying to get your socks on is a challenge. So obviously the assistance is someone is helping you. So for example, you're not going out that much. You don't want to ask for help because whoever it is, you feel like they're doing enough for you and we don't want to be a burden. So you're either not wearing socks, or like, a lot of people will have their really warm slippers, or they'll just stay in their socks. So like I will literally stay in a pair of socks, um, potentially for days. It's not like my feet are getting sweaty, you know. Um, so you need to be clear about that so they can figure out. So say for example, someone's only actually helping you put your socks on one day a week when you go out, if you're managing to do that. And the other days you're either in the same socks or you're not wearing the socks. You need to be clear, because then that will make a difference to how they assess you. Okay. So even though you have an assistance one day a week, realistically you need it 7 days a week, but you're not, because you don't want to be a burden. Okay. You've got to be honest. For body, they hate to give these points. They hate it. I've had so many clients where they are not able to change their tops without assistance, and they do not like to give these points. Even clients that their shoulders dislocate, they don't like to give these points. So be honest. Pretty much all of us, everyone I work with, we're in oversized clothing because it's easier. We're all avoiding zips and buttons because of either fatigue, pain, we ain't got the energy for it, and why set ourselves up for failure? Why make our lives more difficult? If you can manage zips and buttons, I'm so happy for you. If you're wearing fitted clothing, I'm so happy for you. You would need to evidence fuck out of this. But again, plan that you're not going to get the points. Just plan that you're not going to get them, even if this is true. On the upper body, if you've stopped wearing a bra, like I've stopped wearing a bra, I'm wearing like these vest things, like thermal, like hug me vests, which is great because they're really warm, but it takes so much energy to get them on and off, but it's easier than a bra. If you've stopped wearing a bra because of your condition, make sure you say that. So make sure you're clear about your unique situation. Okay. Then we've got using an aid. Right. So I'm going to show you one of my aids. So here is Ollie, my assistance dog. So I was trying on jeggings. I know I haven't worn these for years now. I was trying them on and I couldn't get the fuckers off. So I was getting Ollie to help pull them off me, but I forgot that my chair was on wheels. So she gave me an almighty pull, and then I started sliding, which is why I look so glamorous. Oh, bless her. She was amazing. Now, assistance dogs don't actually count as aids, right? When they say assistance dog in their paperwork, what they mean is guide dog or hearing dog. So even though I have an assistance dog and I use her, they don't really count them if you've got an assistance dog, okay? This might surprise you, what I'm about to say. I have seen quite a few times where even at tribunal level and, well, all levels actually, that people are being given the points for using an aid, even though they're not using an aid. Okay, now let me explain. So I would fit into this category, because forget about my assistance dog. I ideally need to use a sock aid, right? Actually, no, at the moment my hips are doing quite well. So let's say, for example, someone needs to use a sock aid, right? But sock aids are, they're right? Sometimes they're brilliant. If the person's hands are good, and if they don't suffer from fatigue, they're brilliant. Brilliant. But for those of us with hand issues, like Raynaud's neuropathy, it's arthritis, it's a nightmare using a sock aid. A nightmare. So what I do is I will just not get changed because I can't. So what they do, but I don't get prompted. Okay, so I don't get prompted. I just make that decision myself. I'm not diagnosed with depression or anxiety. Obviously, I'm human, so I do go through periods of feeling like shit or feeling really low, but not depression, anxiety level experience, if that makes sense. I was trying to figure out how to word it right. What was I saying? Yeah, so for me and for many people, they are really understanding that the aids for dressing is very limited. Like some of us, we have to sit in lower chairs, we have to get in certain positions, we have to put a foot up on something to be able to get to it, to be able to do the sock. Or there's a lot of scooping, there's a lot of throwing, like a very strategic throw to get the clothing over the foot. Yeah. Um, they really understand if we're not using the aids, so then we're not doing it. But then we're not getting prompted, so they basically will score, they will give the 2 points correctly because the person's life is impacted, even though we're not using the aids. Like, for example, for me, zips and buttons, no chance, no chance. Like, there's a big difference in, like, for me, typing is not all the time, but I can do typing most days, right? Certain times a day. Putting pressure on a knife and fork, no, 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 along with fatigue. Zips and buttons, no, no. Like, I could do it if I forced myself, but I wouldn't because it's a nightmare. Coordination, energy wise, it triggers pain. No. So they're very understanding of that. It's amazing. And again, I've seen this at all levels. So be really honest about what your life is like. And again, for those of us that fit into this category, we have very, very clear evidence as to why we fit into that category. They are really, really good at this. So don't forget, you need to include your averages, like on average, how often you actually changing into clothes. And the possible aids, obviously the sock aid, shoe horns, the grabbers, leg lifters, the hooks, so where you're sitting if it's a lower seat. So some people get dressed on the bed for their upper body, but then they need to sit in a different chair to be able to do the lower body or somewhere. Whatever strategy you've got, really think about how you actually do it and then explain it. So I'll give you a bad example first of how to explain your life. I have to wear oversized clothing and my partner has to help me get dressed. How often? Which parts of your body? Is it upper body, lower body? Is it socks? So, but we've got to be specific. Remember that the assessment is breaking down into areas of the body. So they need to understand and understand why, and don't get absorbed in this. You can explain oversized clothing, but I've not met a single person that's not got oversized clothing. Like we just naturally do it because it's so much easier to get on. And I hate it. If do you have like favorite clothing? I pretty much am in the same clothes all the time. Like when I first started YouTube, someone was like, "Well, you need to wear a different outfit every time," and I'm like, "You fucking joking? I ain't got the energy to fuck around like that." How many times do you see me in my pajamas? I'm in my pajamas now. Yeah. I love it. By the way, so like the elbow pads, my elbows are my best joints, but I just get sore leaning on the desk because I'm supporting my body weight. But I love the grumpy cat. Got these new. My mum got me these for Christmas. Because don't we just love our comfy clothes? Just give us our comfy clothes, and we have favourites, don't we? Like one of my favourite, which are the grey ones that you've seen me in with the hood. Like they're getting to the point where they're really, really mature. I'm not partnering with them. I love them. Oh, sorry. Good example. I think when like I'm like, do I need to stop filming? Am I starting to chat too much? But I really want to get these videos done. Okay, good example. Probably best if I just read from the book. I was going to try and come up with a different one, but now that I'm chatting to you and I feel like I'm chatting bollocks, I'll just read it. Okay. So good one. for mental health. I only change my clothes every few days as my partner nags me. I just can't get motivated to do it. I feel like there's no point. Evidence suggestions. Take photos of any aids that you use. Something that's quite good with this one is I've seen some physiotherapist reports where they explain the flexibility of moving your arm. So, like, I don't have this, but when I worked with my physio, I could have got a report saying this because for me, moving my arm above chest height massively increases the pain. So we obviously need to keep trying to move, but it's very, very limited. I don't want to do it. I avoid it because it just pisses the pain off even more, and I don't want that. So sometimes you'll get a really good report from physio on, because again, it's fact based. What is your ability to move? And they do it in percentages, which is really great for the medical side of this. By the way, you can't just go to a physio, see them once and get them to write their report. It doesn't work like that. You need to have been at least having treatment for like 3 months with them. Okay, because otherwise people would just take the piss and lie, the dickheads that are trying to abuse the system. By the way, if you are one of those people, get the fuck off my channel. This channel's for people that have truly been impacted by chronic illness and are really struggling, not for lazy people that are trying to milk the system. So common mistakes on this one is being embarrassed and not understanding your life enough to be able to explain it in the way they need it. Like we're blocking the facts of our life that actually we've stopped wearing a bra because of this reason. You need to be able to communicate it. And then the other challenge is like not being embarrassed that we need to say this, so that they can understand. Not knowing your averages. I would say that in everyone that's a challenge. Okay, so let's have a look at the points by the way I've grouped conditions so you can see where to focus on. So physical conditions could be B, using an aid, possibly D, assistance with lower body, or when it's really shit, possible assistance with the upper body. But remember, they don't like to give those 4 points. Mental health conditions would potentially be the prompting. That's it. Neurodivergence. So ADHD, potentially this one for the prompting. Autism, potentially this one for prompting or assistance to select appropriate clothing. Potentially, maybe with severe learning disabilities, could be D, could be E. Now, if you'll be watching the video for someone that is in this category, it's not going to be the person that needs the assistance that watching the video with the learning disabilities. So if you're the parent, really explain the system you have for this and what happens when it goes wrong. So big shout out to codename Wrong Turn. The codename Wrong Turn is because of the challenges with putting trousers on the right way. And she made me snort with laughter when we were talking about the system and everything. It was an amazing system. And no matter how much you try, how much you instruct, it still goes wrong quite often. But explain the system that you've got, because those of you that are caring for someone with learning disabilities and severe autism, you are organised to fuck. You are amazing how you manage things. Really explain the reality of life and what would happen if you weren't there. Okay, which in my experience, if people are in this category, is if you weren't there, they just wouldn't get changed. Yeah, just be blunt. I nearly forgot one of the most, awful ones of fatigue. Hang on. So fatigue is shit, right? Obviously, that's one of the main things that fucks up my life. So it'd be using an aid, rarely D and E. I've never actually seen them give these points for a fatigue only condition. I really hope these have been helpful. If you can do me a favour and comment and let me know if these are helpful, because it's been over a year since I've done videos like this. I didn't realise so much time fucking flies by, doesn't it? And I'm learning all the time. So I feel like I need to do these more regularly because I keep learning. So I'm just getting better and better and I want to share the knowledge. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Summary. Obviously you get that it's only putting clothes on and off, right? And how often you do it. And again, the biggest challenge, like I always say this, and this is like when I work with clients, I basically spend a lot of time unpicking their norm because we adapt. most people, I think I've only ever worked with one person where it was an accident and their life just changed overnight. Everyone else, and it is over 200 now, is where chronic illness has happened over a period of time. So you just slowly adapt and you don't realise it. And then we block. I'm warning you now, I'm going to cut the crap on this one because 99.9999999% of you will not score in talking, listening, and understanding. I'm really sorry, but I'm right. Okay, so let's just cut the crap. It's about your first language. So if your first language is Urdu and you're crap at English, it's not talking, listening, and understanding in English. It's your first language. Let's check the points. Okay, so we're going to go through these and look at them individually. Okay, but I'm going to give you a reality check. This one here, complex verbal information. I have clients who their children are non-verbal, autistic, non-verbal. They can maybe say 10 to 30 words, like hungry. And they will only say those words to very few people that they feel safe with and in environments where they feel safe. They do not get given the 4 points. They are tight as fuck on these points. Now, you know that I'm just grateful that we've got the process. So long as I understand procedure, I'm happy. You know, so long as people get treated fairly in the end with the right level of funding, I accept that they don't give us the right points. But this one, when my non-verbal clients don't actually get 4 points here, it does frustrate me. Okay. So reality check. Non-verbal, autistic people do not get given the points here. If you can say this, right? Hi, my name's Charlie. I've got psoriatic arthritis and I take tramadol for pain relief. I'm on leflunomide and biologic, a new one, which I've actually forgotten the name of. I'd have to look it up. If you can say that, you can communicate. Like if you, obviously not, don't repeat what I've said, but if you can say your name, your condition, your treatment, like have you got a pet? So you're like, yeah, I've got my dog, my fur baby. What's your dog's name? Oh, my dog's called Matilda. You can communicate. That's it. From a PIP point of view, you can communicate. Zero. That's it. They do not care about brain fog. They don't care about the times that you're so anxious you can't speak. They don't care about that 4 days a week you're in bed with a migraine and not able to talk to someone. They don't care. It's when you're able to speak, can you actually speak? If you're watching this and you can speak, you're not entitled to it. Just accept it. The only time it would count is if you had a trained, qualified communication person, which I haven't met anyone that's had. An interpreter doesn't count because it's first language. So let's just look at aids, okay, just in case you do score here. By the way, if you do have a child that is nonverbal, be really blunt about it. Just be really blunt, right? Okay, so aids. So what if you're thinking, hang on a minute, have I moved? Yeah, sometimes I forget to put myself in the bottom corner and then chat and then realise that I'm full screen and I've been thinking that you can see something and you can't. Right, aids. What if you're like, Charlie, I wear hearing aids? Okay, it only counts if you take the hearing aids out and then you can't communicate. And by the way, I love my clients because my clients, I know I say this all the time, I'm so lucky for the people I work with because when they don't score, they're fucking happy. Like, we're so happy. So, like, I've had clients where they go, I've got hearing aids, and I'm like, okay, when you take them out, can you actually hear? Oh, it's a bit more difficult, but yeah, I can. Right, you're 0 points. But then I've got some clients where the hearing aid comes out and they come up with their PIP gold of what it's like for them without their hearing aids, and they score. It has to be significant without them, okay? And again, there's no way to blag this because you have the hearing tests, yeah? Just in case we've got any of the dickheads watching this that are trying to blag the system. So if you've got the speech thing for the throat, obviously that counts as an aid. If you like the late Stephen Hawkins, that speech thing, that counts. If your children are using the facial expressions or pointing to the food, hungry, the pictures, they count as aids. Now, if your child, because again, your child's not going to be watching this video, bless them, hopefully they're, doing something more exciting than watching a fucking PIP video. If your child doesn't understand simple things like danger, make sure you explain that. Make sure you're very, very clear about that. Okay. If you're, so for example, you've had a stroke and your speech has been impacted, the first 6 months after you have a stroke, your potential recovery is amazing, right? So you need to, obviously, PIP is like, you've been like this for 3 months and it's going to be like it for another 9 months. So they've taken that into account. But if you're helping someone whose speech is impaired, it needs to be significantly impaired again. So again, most of you just aren't going to score here, right? See how I was getting really enthusiastic then and made my shoulder pain worse. So I'm going to give you a crap example of what not to write. I get really bad brain fog, so I need my husband to come into appointments with me to make sure I understand what the doctor's saying. Again, I'm sorry, they just don't care, right? A good example, and obviously you can ignore me, yeah? Just because this is my approach doesn't mean it's the only way, okay? You have to do what is right for you. It's your claim, your life, right? That's the most important thing. You can just ignore me. I don't advise that you do because obviously I've learned over time and but it's your choice and I support whatever you want. So a good example of this, and I'm just going to read what I wrote in the book. This was a neurodivergence example, okay? My daughter has a limited vocabulary. She would not be able to follow directions at all. She can say when she's hungry, but she will only speak to people she knows and trusts. Pretty much the example I gave earlier, yeah? Evidence suggestions, obviously that aids. I love it. So my clients that can't communicate properly without hearing aids, they have like the hearing test examples and then we photograph the hearing aids. So if your child is autistic and has speech issues, I've seen quite a few of the speech therapy reports, and to be honest, they've all been pretty shit. Um, I've never seen a really good one. So I find that the full ASD reports seem to be a bit better. But it's more so what you say about your child and the way you describe it and come up with their PIP gold, what is unique to them. That seems to be more powerful. Okay. And we don't want loads of pages when it's not good evidence, yeah? So that's speech therapy. I think the first time I saw one, I submitted it because I kind of felt like I should. I don't even bother now because they just seem to be crap from a PIP ADP point of view, okay? Common mistakes, obviously thinking brain fog, bedridden days, the times that we can't speak properly, thinking that counts. It doesn't. I actually wrote this. This is what I wrote, right? Assuming the DWP will score this activity fairly. It often doesn't. It's true. Common mistake is saying that you can't communicate and then the assessor understanding from your medical documents that you can communicate. So then they're going to not believe you in other areas because they're like, oh, they're saying they can't talk when clearly they fucking can. It just makes it look like you're being dramatic and trying to go for all the points that isn't your life. So it'll make them doubt you in other areas, which is why I say just cut the crap, be honest, you can speak. Okay. So you could, if you're a bit nervous about it, you could do, I am able to speak for myself, but I do get bad brain fog. So my partner comes with me into the appointments. You could say that, but again, go, but I am able to speak. So at least you're being honest, but you're getting in the bit that you're worried about. So you're painting the picture of your life, yeah? Because you're not a PIP specialist, are you? You're not a PIP specialist, and you wouldn't know this if you weren't watching this guide. Right, so let's look at the scoring based on the way I've grouped conditions. So physical conditions, none of it, 0. Mental health conditions, none of it. Neurodivergence, ADHD, none of it, you won't score. Autism could be potentially C or D. Fatigue dominated conditions, nowhere, won't score. Sorry. So in summary, 99.9999999% of you will be 0. It'll only be the children whose parents are watching this, or people with the hearing aids or the speech thing or the Stephen Hawking speech stuff. So reading, understanding signs, symbols and words. This is about reading in your first language. Okay, so it doesn't matter if your first language is Polish and you're crap at reading in English. That's not what they mean. It's your first language. Let's check the points. We're going to go through and have a look at these one by one. Let's just clarify a couple of things, right? When it comes to using an aid, that is only for people that are diagnosed with dyslexia, that can prove they're diagnosed with dyslexia, because I am finding a lot of people were diagnosed like many years ago and don't have the documents. If you can't prove it, you can't discuss it. Yeah, they don't count it. We'll talk about some other aids later on, like if you've got major issues with your eyes. Okay. Now, you know that I've explained that prompting in literally all of the activities links to depression, severe depression. This is the one for the severe depression. This one is the basic written information. I generally find that this is for people with learning disabilities, severe autism, okay? Not mental health conditions, okay? In my experience, taking that into account, if you can read what's, no, right, let's be careful about how I say this. If you can read what's written on the screen, if you can read text messages from a PIP point of view, you can read. If at school you went to a special school or you had one-on-one support, make sure you evidence it because it will back you up on potentially this one, okay? Now, if you're doing this for someone that cannot read at all, so in my experience, so sometimes I've had it where I'm working with clients and it's someone that's more mature, and they never learned to read. Okay, so they could be in this one. Also, this could be if your child is autistic, has learning disabilities, if they could not understand a sign that says danger, they are 100% in this category. Okay. Don't forget they never give the right points. I've had a number of clients that cannot read the word or understand the word danger. Okay. They've never been given the 8 points. They have been given the right level of funding, but they never get the 8 points. You be blunt as fuck about this if that is your child, okay? This one is really similar to the communication and the budgeting. They don't count brain fog. They don't count our bedridden days. If you've got migraines and you're bedridden 3 days a week, 4 days a week, they don't count that. That over 50% of the time you're not able to read, they don't count it. It's when we're well enough, can we read? So we'll just go on the, it's all going wrong. So using an aid. So I've worked with clients where quite a few people will use a magnifying glass because it just makes it easier. That doesn't count. The clients that will score the points here with the magnifying glass is codename Team Sleepers with a severe eye condition. I actually think codename Team Sleepers is the only person I've worked with where, you know, we've proven it and it's been done. So most people, the magnifying glass, don't forget they don't care about glasses. That's irrelevant. Everyone else that scores is here is dyslexic, and those overlays seem to help people massively. The text-to-speech software helps people massively. I've got a number of clients that are working that are autistic warriors and amazing numbers like coding, like all the IT shit that like most of us are crap at. But if they have to look at emails, no. So the companies put systems in place so that they either don't get the emails or they use the text-to-speech software. Yeah, that's where you score. That's where the points are scored here. So let's talk about this one. So if you suffer from severe depression, PTSD, CPTSD, anxiety, and you avoid reading letters, documents, forms, PIP stuff, and someone needs to nag you, encourage you, do it for you, or try and get you on one of your better days to sit down and go through it with them, you could potentially score here. Okay, try and be really honest about the thoughts it triggers in your head when there is paperwork for you to do. Yeah, and how long those thoughts will go on for. I think I was clear about this one, that is if your child can't understand the sign danger. Yeah, be really blunt about it. For the basic written information, that's so for example, you've got your meds and it says take two tablets a day. That's basic. Yeah. Complex is your PIP form. Yeah. So I hope that helps you understand the difference between the two. So a crap example of what to write. I get really bad brain fog, so my husband has to look after all of our paperwork, blah, 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 blah. Right. I haven't even got the energy to do the crap example, like, because this is something new I'm doing, that I'm trying to do a bad example and a good example, but I'm really struggling with the bad examples because all the time I've been doing this, it's always about giving a good example, but I think it's actually helpful to see a bad example. A good example, do the mental health group. My daughter looks after all my paperwork. I just can't cope with it. My anxiety goes through the roof. I can't even open my post. Yeah, nice, straightforward. I'd try and obviously put a bit of the PIP gold on, like what uniquely goes through your head. Evidence suggestions, obviously photos of any aids that are used, and it will be diagnosis. Diagnosis will be a strong one here. If you're doing this for your child, potentially the ASD report. Common mistakes, obviously thinking that brain fog, bedridden days and all that counts. It doesn't. Being confused and misunderstanding that it's first language, and thinking that, oh, I just said it already, haven't I? My brain fog's kicking in. I'm just like, what am I trying to say? I've already said it. Oh yeah, this is something that I see quite a lot, where people will explain that they're dyslexic, got ADHD and all that, but they haven't got a diagnosis. Doesn't count if you haven't got a diagnosis. It's just fact. That's just it. Okay, you need diagnosis. So let's have a look. So you know where I've broken down. So I've broken down conditions into 4 groups. So let's see what areas you might score. Physical conditions, like pain-dominated conditions, you won't score. Potential eye conditions, you could score here. Mental health could be potentially C. Neurodivergence, cognitive issues, learning disabilities could be B. Could be C for ADHD. Could be D or E, depending on their individual uniqueness. Fatigue dominated conditions, you're going to be 0. Okay, I'm really sorry. Be honest, paint the picture of your life. Understand if you don't have a mental health condition as well as whatever the fatigue condition is, then you're pretty much not going to score here. I'm really sorry about that. Right, in summary, glasses do not count as an aid. Don't forget that. Only specialist aids for diagnosed conditions like the overlays for people that are dyslexic. Most people will score 0 here if they're not using an aid. I do often see the 2 points for prompting for people with severe depression. They are very understanding of that. Please remember that, again, my clients don't come to me with mild conditions. You know, people come to me when their chronic illness has truly overtaken their life. Truly taken over their lives. If you are able to read and you don't have, like, if you've got a physical condition and you don't suffer from depression and anxiety, just explain you can read. They will so appreciate it. It will help your claim. Engaging with people face to face or mixing with other people, it's about people that you're not comfortable with. So this could be family members that basically don't understand your condition. It doesn't just mean strangers, okay? Just to clarify, this activity is not for people with only physical conditions. When I say only, I'm not like being derogatory about the severity of physical conditions, because I live with a physical condition. But this activity is designed for people with mental health diagnosis, neurodivergence, cognitive issues, learning disabilities. Now, I still need you to watch this if you have a physical condition, because when you write the form, you need to, or whatever level you're at, like if you're doing mandatory reconsideration or tribunal, you still need to paint the picture of your life, and you need to remember that you are not a PIP specialist. So, for example, when I write these, even if I'm working with clients that have, say, for example, someone's got explosive diarrhea, that when that happens, it leaks through the pad. And this has happened around strangers. So they don't want to go out. They get really stressed about going out, but they're not diagnosed with anxiety. From a PIP point of view, they're not going to score. Okay, I'm going to show you the points in a second. This is brutal. And it took me years to figure this out, right? And it wasn't until I was writing the book that I realised, shit, like literally, shit, this is why people aren't scoring here, because it's not about physical conditions. And I think from their point of view, they sort of think if someone's got explosive diarrhea to that level, they're probably suffering from depression and anxiety, dealing with that all the time. because I think the statistics are something like 80% of us with chronic illness also suffers from depression and anxiety. Let's look at how they're assessing us. Let's see the points. So we're going to go through it one by one. Prompting. So prompting is for people that are suffering from severe depression, that are basically getting nagged. If you're getting nagged by family members to like try and get you out and mix in with people, you would potentially score here. This could also be if your child is neurodivergent and you're having to really encourage them to get out because they hate it because of the noise, because of the lighting, etc. They could score here. Now, this one is nice and clear. I love this one because there's no grey area. If you or the person you're watching this for never goes out unless they have someone with them that they know and trust, it's really simple. They score here. Always with someone they know and trust. Never go out alone. No grey area on this one. And remember, you're never ever just talking about the worst days. This is for people that score here. There is no question, they never go out alone. And if that is the case, what they like to understand is, what is it the person that's with you does? Why do you feel better with them? And again, this is PIP gold because only you can explain that. And if you're a parent, you can explain what would happen if you went there, because I'm sure there'll be something that's happened in the past that has scared the hell out of you with your child. So you explain that, okay? By the way, there's no category here for using an aid. The only aid that I've ever come up with for this one is people that are autistic needing to wear the headphones to minimize the noise, even though there isn't a bit here for using an aid, okay? Right, this bit could be triggering for you. So if you do get triggered by this, and I'm going to be very careful about how I say things, I'm not going to go into detail about trauma. But if you do get triggered, make sure you reach out to a medical professional, okay? So let's talk about overwhelming psychological distress. Okay, so this is, say for example, someone with PTSD or complex PTSD. If you've been diagnosed with complex PTSD, make sure you write that C down. It is very, very important. I've worked with people before where they've just put PTSD, and then when I've checked their evidence, I've gone, no, hang on a minute, it's complex. There is a big difference. It's very important, okay? So the overwhelming psychological distress could be, for example, people with PTSD where you see danger everywhere. It's terrifying for you. Or it could be someone with really severe contamination OCD. That the idea of, if someone comes near you, did they touch you? Did they touch that wall? Did they touch that wall? What person with you? What if they touched that wall? What about you? Did your jacket brush against that door frame? If it did, it's contaminated. This is the type of lives that would potentially score here. Okay, I'm hoping that the bulk of you won't score here. Luckily, for those of you that do, you need to be really honest about what's going through your head. Okay, so this one, behaviour which could result in substantial risk of harm to you or another person. So this could be that if you're around people that you might end up shouting, you might go into fight or flight, and instead of flight, you go into fight mode. It could be that you could get so stressed and have such a meltdown that you self-harm. And that it could be before, during, or after. So again, you need to be really honest about this. Okay, if it's potentially throwing things, screaming, crying, that that's why they've grouped these together. Okay, so if you're writing this for someone, you just need to be honest. Okay, obviously if you're writing it for yourself, you just need to be honest. Okay, and make sure that your medical records mirror what your daily life is. I do find with a number of people, especially with mental health conditions, that actually your medical records don't match your daily life because you haven't got the motivation to get the help. So you've been on the same meds for a while and life is shit. You've got to go back to your GP. You've got to try and get help. the DWP love to see you doing everything you possibly can to help yourself. I've definitely seen a pattern in the past year or so, and I think this is because my clients and I, we work as a team. I always give people action points, right? So, and because when I work with people, so for example, I start with someone a claim, when we do the evidence, I'm working at tribunal standards because we know they don't give us the right points. We know we're going to have to do an appeal, mandatory reconsideration or redetermination in Scotland. Scotland, they're reading them. They're actually really good in Scotland. Us down south, they're not reading a lot of mandatory reconsiderations. Okay, so you get a no change letter, and then you need to log tribunal. So when I work with people, I'm working on a tribunal from the beginning. That's the standard that we're doing it to, which means that my client is going to be going through the process for potentially over a year before we get treated fairly in the end, before they get treated fairly in the end. I say weeks, we're a team, right? So even though like someone, I do a claim with them, they'll send me little updates, not always, because obviously some people haven't got the energy, you know, they're just not well enough to send updates. So I always explain to people that they love to see you doing everything you possibly can to help yourself. So for example, for me, I'm on the maximum treatment. I'm on new treatment. Like I've literally, because my disease is so aggressive, I've been on drug trials, and my specialist is one of the top in the UK. I'm just really lucky, he just happened to be in my area. And you can see based on my medical records that I am getting all of the help there possibly is. And unfortunately, I have a degenerative condition, like a lot of you watching this. I can't do any more than what I am, other than try pacing and things like that. But I work with so many people where they're not on the highest level of meds. They haven't worked with a specialist, or they've been on a medication for so long, but on average, 6 days a week, they can't leave their home, or they're not able to change their clothes. Like, so a lot of my clients, the action point is, we need to go back to your GP. You need to get to a specialist. So please, please have a think about that, because if you're still watching this, it's probably because you school here and we need to get you some more help. Okay. A bad example of what to write here, but I still want you to do this, is even though you know, because you've watched this, that if you've only got a physical condition, you're not going to get points here. But I want you to still paint the picture of your life. It's important to paint the picture. So if you're only going out, say, for example, with your partner because your arthritis is so bad, your walking is rubbish, or you need to get access to the toilet really quickly, you haven't got the energy to do it, you need someone with you, paint the picture, but understand you won't get the points. Okay, so that's my bad example, even though it's not bad. It's because you won't get the points, right? So I'll give a good mental health example. I'm just going to read what I wrote in the book. I have no motivation. I don't want to go out. If my friend did not nag me, I would not mix with people at all. The last time I went out was a month and a half ago for a doctor's appointment. Nice, simple, to the point. Evidence for this is specialist letters that state fact. Do not, I repeat, do not try and influence the way specialists write letters. They are perfect the way they write them. When you try and influence them and do things like, can you explain that I can't go out on my own because my anxiety? They're just going to write, he, she, they said they can't go out on their own because their anxiety. That's not medical fact. That's what the process for you to write is. Just, especially if you've got letters from psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, really important here. If you have the crisis team involved, or the mental health team, if you've got a care plan, and a care plan is something that will be documented. It's like a number of pages that's done with the mental health team. If you've got that, make sure you put that in as evidence. Okay. For a lot of you, it will be diagnosis and treatment. Okay. If you're not, so for example, you suffer from depression, but you're not on any meds, you're not having any treatment. From a PIP point of view, it'll be like, well, it's obviously not that bad. That's what they'll think. Rightly or wrongly, that's what they'll think. So I've worked with a couple of people where they're not taking meds, but due to a very, very uniquely specific reason, which we then explained, a very severe uniquely specific reason, okay? But genuinely, they will expect us to be having treatment if our lives are this severely impacted. Common mistakes is feeling too embarrassed to talk about the triggers or risky behaviour because, like, for example, if someone goes into fight mode and has hurt people, it's the embarrassment of, but that's not who I am. You know, you need to be honest. Especially I find when I work with people with PTSD, CPTSD, I used to get a lot of people that were further down the line in the PIP process. Now people sort of seem to come to me more at the beginning. And with those people, it's that they weren't being honest about what was going through their head. So you have to remember that the people that read this, odds are they don't understand how it feels to have your condition. So you need to get them to understand what it feels like to be in your brain. What's going on up here? Another common mistake is thinking your GP letter is going to help, that letters from friends and family will help. They don't. Right, don't waste your time. Or another example is when people don't give examples of what's gone wrong in the past. Okay. And remember, if you've experienced past trauma, you do not have to explain to them what happened. It's about current daily life. They are not trained to talk to you about past trauma. And I've never, ever experienced an assessor asking what the trauma was. I've never experienced that. It's about current daily life, how you're dealing with the now. So let's look at possible scorings. So physical condition only, you won't score here. Mental health conditions, more commonly, if you're going to score, is probably B, unless you are never going out on your own. So due to like horrendously severe anxiety, agoraphobia, paranoia, potentially in very severe cases might score in this area as well. So for neurodivergence, cognitive challenges, learning disabilities, ADHD tend to find it's harder to get you to stop talking than needing to encourage you to get out and be around people. Obviously, if I'm wrong, you go for what is right for you. So potentially could be B for the prompting, or C. Rarely, if there's a risk of harm to the individual. So say, for example, they don't understand stranger danger, or they could say something that could upset someone and it could kick off. Fatigue dominant conditions won't score here, but again, paint the picture of your life. So summary, this is only about how you mix with people that you don't know and trust. One of the approaches that they like to take is, well, if you were at a checkout and they spoke to you, what would you do? Or this is a really common one where they'll be like, well, if you had an Amazon delivery, would you open the door to that person? How would you handle it? And then from there, they can quite easily categorize you. And don't forget that physical conditions alone do not entitle you to score in this activity. Making budget decisions, managing money, is not about being good with money. Most of the country, unfortunately, has some level of debt. Most people do a bit of impulsive shopping and a crap with money, right? So that is not what it's about, all right? So I'm going to show you what they're assessing us against. So this is not about physical conditions, okay? This activity is designed for people with mental health conditions, learning disabilities, cognitive challenges, autism, neurodivergence, or dyscalculia. If you understand what money is and you manage your money, then you're just not going to score here, okay? But if you suffer from depression, anxiety, or neurodivergence, etc., just keep watching, just in case you do score. This one, the prompting one, it tends to be where people will score if they have severe depression and are avoiding even looking at money, looking at their budgets. And is someone helping you? Does anyone like sit and go through your budget with you? If you're in a position where someone's checking like your Amazon spends, or someone gives you a certain amount of money because you're so crap at it, like it needs to be managed that way, make sure you explain that. Okay. It could be like sometimes it's that people will just simply avoid, and then every now and again their friend will help them look at the facts. Okay, just be honest about what your life is. So when it comes to simple budgeting decisions, so this is more for neurodivergence. Not ADHD would tend to be B on this, okay, but complex. The simple budgeting decisions would be, say for example, you're watching this for your child, and could you give your child £20 and say, go and get yourself some lunch, and them understand what money is, how much things cost, and that they should receive change? If no, then they would fit into this category. If you're doing this for someone, or helping someone that literally does not understand what money is, can't do budgeting at all, then clearly there'd be 6 points. Okay, and you just need to be extremely blunt about it. If you're a parent and your child is like 16, 17, moving from DLA to PIP or ADP, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because most 17-year-olds that live at home aren't doing a budget to pay the mortgage, to buy food, to pay the council tax. So you need to basically decide, when your child moves out, can they do that? If yes, then that's how you do it. So there's no aids in this one. So some of you might find that you feel that what you're writing here is really similar to what you write in reading and understanding. You know, like say for example, you suffer from severe depression and you don't want to open your post. You just can't face everything. You can't face worrying about your money. Then it might be quite similar in both areas as to what you write, and don't worry, that is quite normal. So when I work with people, I tend to do these two together. When I say together, I mean work on them at the same time. So I'll give you a bad example of what not to write. I'm in a lot of debt. I have a number of credit cards. I spend, as soon as money goes into my account, it's gone same day, and then I'm into my overdraft. My ADHD makes me really impulsive. I worry about money all the time. It's not enough. It's not enough. Again, the bulk of the country is in debt. It's normal, unfortunately. Like, our culture is shit when it comes to debt. It's just normal. A good example, I'll give you 2 examples on this one, okay? I'm just going to read what I wrote in the book. Mental health group example. I can't cope with looking at my money as I know it's a mess. My friend helps me every 2 weeks. He makes me look at my bank account and he will make sure I've got enough to pay the bills. Without him, I would not manage. Or a neurodivergence example. My daughter does not understand what money is. I look after all of her finances for her. Now, again, both of those would be really easy to evidence. So it would be like diagnosis letters, the EHCP, the ASD report if you're applying for this for the first time, and your meds, which again, you've got to watch my evidence videos, because you need, whatever you are doing, you must do the evidence. Okay, it is critical. And I mean good evidence, not shit evidence. Common mistakes, thinking that because you're shit with money that you're going to score. Doesn't work like that. But not understanding how severe your condition needs to be to entitle you to score here. Or assuming that you're going to score because someone else looks after your money, because they always have. Like, I've worked with a few people where the partner looks after the money and they do something else in the relationship just because it's always been that way. But that is not how it works, okay? It's where it's a necessity because of the chronic illness. So let's just have a look at where you could potentially score based on the way I've grouped conditions. So physical conditions, you won't score here. Mental health, potentially here. ADHD, potentially here. Neurodivergence, this could be learning disabilities, autism, could potentially be any of these 3. Or none, obviously. Fatigue dominant conditions. If you only have a fatigue dominant condition like CFS, ME, then you won't score here. Again, paint a picture of your life. Or if you don't have help with this, then just be honest about it, because again, they'll appreciate it. In summary, the people that score here are those that have regular help with managing their finances because of their conditions, or those people that don't understand what money is and how it works. Or it could be people, if someone has dyscalculia, they could score here. Most people do not score in this, even if we're shit with money. We're now into the mobility part of the PIP and ADP process, where there are two activities: planning and following a journey and moving around, which is like walking. Planning and following a journey is for non-physical conditions. So like mental health, neurodivergence, cognitive issues, like if someone's got severe dementia. Then the moving around is for the physical conditions and not relevant for, say, someone with depression. Okay, so it's very clearly split. So we'll start with planning and following a journey. So let's have a look at how they assess us. This is what they are looking at. We're going to come back to that in a minute. I just want to warn you about something. On the new review forms, the way they're asking the questions, they are not encouraging you to be honest about your life in a manner that links with the way they're assessing you behind the scenes. For example, on the new review form, there is nothing about unfamiliar or familiar locations, whereas that's really important. The way the new review form is worded, and I've got a brief video on this, and I've got another guide coming on this. You need to be really careful that you explain your life in the way that they're trying to assess us, whether the form is set up for it or not. Do not fall for it that it is just planning a journey. That is not the only thing they're looking at, okay? This is really important. I am really worried that so many people are not going to get the funding they're entitled to, or people are going to lose the funding they are entitled to because of this strategy, okay? Remember SCAR. Are you safe, consistent, and reliable? That's what we're looking at. Let's start with a nice straightforward one. Prompting. So this will be for people that are suffering from severe depression, or normally people that are suffering from severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, where someone is really trying to encourage you or even nag you to get out the house. If that is you, like, how often is that happening? Why? And I always try and put in, obviously, you know, I love averages because I talk about it all the time. On average, how many times are you going out? Now, be honest about that. When I work with clients on this, there's something that I call PIP guilt. Right, you know, there's so many people, especially in the newspapers, where they think we're scroungers and, you know, we want to be like this, which is ridiculous. A lot of people get what I call PIP guilt, where they get really worried that if they're having a rare better day and they get to do something they don't normally do, that maybe they do like 3 to 5 times a year, so it's not their normal daily life, they get really paranoid about, well, what if they're seen? What if they're followed? What if people think they're lying? Because everyone I work with, we don't look sick. We just don't look sick to the untrained eye. What I do is, because I always do averages with my clients, because we never, ever, never, ever follow the shittest advice out there of only talk about your worst day. Again, if anyone says that to you, get the fuck away from them, because they won't be there if you get done for fraud because you took their advice and only talked about your worst day. So, which is generally for us when we're bedridden or housebound. So that when you go out, it looks like you're being fraudulent, it looks like you're a liar. So what we do is we always put how often the person goes out. So remember, they're looking at like a week. So they're looking at a week, and what is your life like over 50% of the time? Is it impacted? Okay. And then we will also put, say, for example, I'm working with someone and a couple of times a year they want to be able to go out for lunch. We'll be honest. We just be honest and say, I really try a few times a year to do this. And then we'll explain, like, if there's aftermath or what the build-up is like. You know, for some people, it's months of anxiety and sleepless nights and panicking and what if. We're just honest about it. But then that means that client with anxiety and paranoia, they know that they've documented it. They know the DWP is aware that they rarely do this, but they can do it only rarely, and there's, how it impacts them. I really recommend that you do that so that you don't fester with PIP guilt. It is not designed to keep us trapped in our homes. It is designed to keep us as independent for as long as possible. But I do feel that there are people that are scared to go out because of all the shit on social media and all the fears out there, okay? So get a step ahead of it, all right? I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to be honest with you. This one, I've never seen anyone get it. No, I think I've seen one person get the points, right? So cannot plan the route of a journey. If you can use Google Maps, as far as PIP are concerned, you can plan a journey, right? Now, what I tend to find is if you're watching this for a loved one that is severely neurodivergent, they tend to not be going out on their own. If they cannot use Google Maps or plan, they tend to be not going out on their own, or it's that they can only go to familiar places if you do a substantial amount of training. Quite often they don't even leave the house, or quite often you need to rescue them. So they tend to score in other areas before they do this one. So I don't really focus on that one too much, okay? Just being honest with you. Again, you can ignore me. Let's chat about this one now. So this is for people that are 360 plus days a year in their home, or people with horrendous OCD where when they go out it is absolutely distressing for them. People with complex PTSD where going out is overwhelming, distressing, again, horrendous for them. People that are agoraphobic, terrified, just want to stay in their home. It should be very, very clear if you fit into this category. Okay, and again, you would have evidence to back this up. If this is you, I would be clear on when the last time you went out was, or on average, how many times you go out a year. Because I find that the people that score here is literally like haven't been out for 3 months plus, haven't been out for 6 months. It's very, very clear if people score here. Or it is that the experience and the aftermath is horrendous, like it triggers more nightmares, it triggers more flashbacks because of CPTSD. Okay. Again, you don't need to talk about past trauma here. Okay, it's current daily life. So I would explain some triggers that you have, so that they can just understand, because they will have no idea what's going through your head. So let's talk about a nice and easy one. This one. If you never go out on your own, or the person that you're watching this for never goes out on their own, it's 12 points. Okay. Now, where it says assistance dog, I have an assistance dog, and I did a change of circumstance because I have an assistance dog. Where they say assistance dog, what they mean is a guide dog or a hearing dog. Assistance dogs do not count. I don't know why the fuck it says that. An orientation aid is like, white cane for someone, or, that's pretty much the only time I've seen people get points for actually using an aid. It's really simple. Never ever go out on their own. Done. Should be no grey area here. Again, if like that person once or twice a year will try, you can explain that. And I would be clear about the last time that happened and what the outcome was. So let's go on to this one. Now, I see a lot of people getting upset about this because they do not go anywhere unfamiliar on their own. So they're like, so that's my life, so I should get the points. It's not that straightforward. For you to get the points here, there has to be a clear pattern in your diagnosis, your treatment, your evidence, and a pattern throughout all of the activities that backs up that your mental health or your neurodivergence, whatever, your cognitive ability is so severe that you truly cannot do this. They do not like to give these points. And I also see it where many people with physical conditions won't go anywhere unfamiliar because they don't know where the toilets are, they don't know the walking distances, so they truly believe they're entitled to these points, but you are not. And if you're watching this, you are not. Physical conditions do not count in this activity. It's the moving around, the walking one that will be for you, potentially. So this one, again, and I have seen them give these points, but there is a clear pattern of how the chronic illness has impacted the individual's life. And it's an awful pattern of how severely their life is impacted to be entitled to these points. Okay, let me give you a bad example of what not to write. How I feel varies. Sometimes I can go out, or sometimes I try to go out. It depends on how I'm feeling on the day. I try to go to appointments, but I can't always do this. I never know how I'm going to feel, so I can't plan ahead because I could be too overwhelmed and not be able to leave my home where I feel safe. Okay, so it's crap because it's vague, it varies, it's sometimes. They can't figure out where you score with that. It needs to be more specific and clearer. So this is a mental health example that I put in the book. I'm not able to go out unless my partner is with me. Even then, I only go out about once a month to medical appointments. There are too many triggers. I am not safe. I need to stay in my home. Blunt, clear. I would try and add, obviously, a bit of uniqueness of what thoughts that go through your head, your bit of PIP gold, okay? So these are just like broad examples. Evidence suggestions of like if you have a guide dog or a hearing dog, obviously make sure you include a photo, including their ID and qualifications. So my dog's qualified assistance dog, so we have a certificate, we have an ID badge, and insurance because she's a qualified working dog. Back to base letters about your condition. For PTSD, CPTSD, I'd expect there to be a letter from a psychiatrist, clinical psychologist, at minimum diagnosis, but I would hope that you would have a specialist letter. Common mistakes is thinking that physical conditions mean that you count here, or thinking that even though you can manage in other activities because you don't go anywhere unfamiliar, that you should get the points there. You don't. Your life needs to be pretty horrendous to be entitled to the 10 points for never going somewhere familiar on your own. Another common mistake is people go waffling and going off topic. So let's have a look at the way I grouped the conditions into the 4 categories and see where you could potentially score. Physical conditions only, you won't score here. Mental health conditions, potentially, mental health conditions, potentially B. Maybe in severe cases, D. Again, really severe cases, potentially E or F. But more commonly, for example, for severe depression, it could be B. Okay. Neurodivergence, so autism, learning disabilities, could be any of these. Okay, you'll need to obviously figure that out. Cognitive challenges, fatigue, dominated conditions, you won't score here, I'm really sorry. And don't forget, like, you're not a PIP specialist, so paint a picture of your life. And even the physical conditions, if like you need, you so for example, you don't go out on your own because you need someone with you to help you with the walk-in, make sure you state that. So you're painting the picture of your life. This isn't like communication where if you can speak, just say you can speak. This is you need to paint a picture of your life because you wouldn't know without watching this guide that physical conditions don't score here. Does that make sense? Yeah. That might sound a bit backwards where you're like, but Charlie, if we're not going to get the points, why would we write something? It's about them understanding everything about your life, how you're impacted. So say, for example, you were like, well, I've only got a physical condition. I'm not going to score there. So I'll say that I'm fine. But you're not because you won't go out unless you're encouraged because you're embarrassed about your stoma bag leaking. But you're not diagnosed with depression or anxiety. You've got to paint the picture so that they can see that you're telling the truth. Yeah, even though you wouldn't get the points there. So even when I work with my clients with my knowledge, I would never, for someone with physical conditions that, say, for example, they never go out on their own, I would never say to them, we're not entitled to it, so just put you fine. No, we tell the truth. You tell the truth about how your life is impacted, but you communicate it in a way that they can then go, thanks for being honest. Okay, you don't score there. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So in summary, obviously this is not for physical conditions. The DWP, the assessment is really focused on familiar locations and unfamiliar locations, places that you know and feel reasonably comfortable with, places you've never been before. Be honest about the reality of your life. And do not, I repeat, do not fall into the trap of, well, I suppose I could. No, this is not about what could you do if there was a zombie apocalypse. No, this is what is the reality of your current daily life. Don't write about rare occasions as if it's happening all the time. I experience that a lot when I work with people where they'll be chatting about something and I'm thinking, because I've obviously seen their evidence at this point, and I'm thinking, how the fuck are they doing that? And then I'm like, well, when was the last time you did that? And they'll be like, 6 months ago. Fuck, current daily life, please. Okay, I'm just going to be blunt with you. So many people screw this one up. People really, really screw this one up. It's not just, can you walk? Okay. I have a client of, I called her, everyone I work with gets a code name so I can recall information about them. So her code name is I've got legs. Because when I said to her, what you like moving around? And she went, well, I've got legs. And I was like, no, that wasn't the question. The question wasn't, have you got legs? So you need to get ready for this, right? It's, how far are you able to walk on level ground? They're not interested in stairs, uneven ground, slopes. They're not interested in shitty weather conditions. It's level ground, not in a wheelchair, not a mobility scooter. They need to know how far you can go without those. You can use an aid like a Zimmer frame, a walking stick. So it's how far you can go without being in pain, your fatigue getting worse, your symptoms getting worse, needing to stop. How long do you stop for? What's the speed that you go at? Is it like normal speed? Are you much slower? Is it snail pace? And what's the aftermath? Okay. And then it's also, and how often can you do this distance? They're very specific in their distances. So let's look at the distances first. We'll look at their points, and then I'm going to show you some easy to relate to it distances because I'm shit at numbers and I found this really, really difficult. So we set up a free template that's on the website, okay, in the free stuff. This is how they do it. So if you can go over 200 meters, actually, look, I'm just going to get to the helpful distances because for a lot of us, like this doesn't mean anything. Like how far is 200 meters? I really struggled with this. And I don't find the information in the claim and all that helpful at all. So we'll look at the distances that I've got, right? 1 meter. So are you able to walk the length of a guitar? If yes, brilliant. So that is this one. So most of you obviously shouldn't score in that category, or I hope you don't score in that category. 2 meters is pretty much the length of your bed or a sofa, okay? Like dining table like this size, okay? That's supposed to be a 2-seater sofa there. So can you do, so we're coming into this one now. More than 1 meter, but no more than 20 meters. So we know that 2 meters is like the length of the bed. 3 meters, pretty much the length of a 3-seater sofa. 10 meters, roughly the length of a double-decker bus. So the 20 meters is 2 buses. Are you able to walk the length of 2 buses without needing to stop? If no, that would put you in this category. So we're gonna go into this in more detail in a minute, okay? Just want you to get the distances in your head first. Then we've got, could you do more than 2 bus lengths, 20 meters, but no more than 50 meters, which is either 5 buses or half a football pitch. If you need to stop before you've done that distance, you would fit into this category. Well, one of these. Unaided, 8 points, but with an aid, potentially 10 points. Then we're going on to, okay, can you do more than 5 bus lengths, but no more than 20 bus lengths? So this is pretty much like, it's either 20 buses, 2 football pitches, or a distance like that. Like it was quite difficult to find an image that we could relate to on 200 meters. Or are you okay walking? If you are, brilliant, I'm so happy for you. DWP go through phases, okay? So they'll go through a phase where they'll be like, and how long does it take you to walk 20 meters? When do we ever get a stopwatch and time ourselves? When do we ever do that? We don't. And they went through a phase where they were really pressurizing people to answer that question. And when I was more inexperienced, we tried to answer it and we just screwed it up every time. So what they really want to understand is what speed are you going at? Are you going at like the same pace as everyone else? Are you being overtaken? Are you slower, much slower, snail pace? That's what they're trying to figure out. But they try to pressurize people to answer this time thing, which don't be bullied into it, okay? Because we don't time ourselves. Okay. Then they they love saying, can you walk down the aisle of a supermarket? So when I was working with my physio, he actually did some tests for me. So he went to like, I think it's 5 different supermarkets. Some were smaller, they were 10 meters, some were 50 meters. And depending on where you were in the supermarket, those big Tesco's can be massive. So do not fall for, are you able to walk down the aisle of a supermarket? Yes. Because then they could decide that you can do over 200, over 50 meters without a problem. But you might be in a really small supermarket, or you might only be going into a certain part of the aisle because you've got a strategy and then you're leaning on something. Okay, so this is really, you have to be really, really careful with this, and you have to figure out your averages. You can't leave it to the assessment. Like on the claim form, you can put your distance varies. If you put that, you are basically putting your quality of life in the hands of a stranger that doesn't know you, that is pushed for time, that is then trying to figure out where you score. Like, my client meetings last for hours and hours. It takes us ages to figure this stuff out, and I care. I care, and it's hard for us to figure out. This haven't got time to do that. You need to know. Remember Scar the Lion. Are you safe? Are you consistent and reliable? Most of you are probably going, no, I'm not. I'm not reliable. So let me ask you this. In your home, where if you're watching my videos, you're probably spending most of your time. In your home, is there anything that is any distance that is more than 2 bus lengths? Probably not. Maybe you've got somewhere in the garden that you go to that's more than 2 bus lengths. So if you do that, can you do that and walk all the way back? Is there anything that you do when you go out that is more than 2 bus lengths? Like, say, for example, you go to the local shop. You drive to the local shop, you park the car. The distance from your car to get into the shop, is that more than 2 bus lengths? When you're in the shop, are you doing more than 2 bus lengths before stopping? When you're doing your walking, what's happening to your body? I want you to think about it from your toes, feet, heels, ankles, knees, hips, back, neck. What's happening to your body? What's happening pain-wise? Is it getting worse? Is it the same? What's happening to your fatigue? What about other symptoms? What about your breathing? If you've got COPD and you're absolutely fucked when you do like 10 steps, you need to be able to explain this, how it feels to be you. When you've walked, what type of stopping are you doing? Are you leaning? Are you sitting? Are you going into what I call flamingo mode, where you're like one leg is up because you're trying to ease the pressure in, like your right foot or something? How long are you resting for? How much prep are you doing before you even go out? Like, so for me to leave my home, I am dosing up on pain relief. There is no way I'm leaving my home without pain relief. And depending on the time of day, like right now, there is no way I'd go out. I can't do the walking. I pretty much live in like a 15-step radius because I decline so hard as the day goes on. Earlier in the morning, I've been going through a really bad phase. I had a really horrendous flare up. I needed emergency treatment where I couldn't leave my home for months, right? But that is not my normal life. That is not the points I've got from PIP, because normally I'd be able to take the dogs out and I get a very short time window where I could do over 200 meters, and then I have to sit on the floor and rest for like half an hour, 45 minutes, but then get back, and then there's major aftermath when I get home. Any walking after that, I'm on a Zimmer frame. Like, I'm not getting down aisles in supermarkets. I need to stop and sit on the Zimmer frame, okay? So I'm variable, but I can answer the question very clearly. It is very fucking hard to admit how limited we are. And another problem is, you think, well, I could, if I push myself. That's not what this is about. It's about your current daily life. What is your reality? What are you doing? Because, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I am drawing a certain type of people, right? You are stubborn as fuck. You are. If you were able to, I think you'd be taking your dogs out. You'd be going for a walk. You'd be popping to the shop when you want something instead of stockpiling stuff in the house so that you've got a backup because you can't get to the shop. You know, your life would be different. So we've got to unpick that norm. You've got to be honest with yourself about the reality of your life and how it feels. You need to be clear. So, say for me, my right side is my worst side. Unless you've got neuropathy, which tends to be like both feet, in my experience so far, it tends to be one side of our body will be worse, right? You need to be very clear about that. That's something that people screw up a lot, where they're like, my feet, my knees. Be specific. Your body is unique. Only you can explain this. Don't look, this does my nut in. Oh, it's sore. Big whoop. Sore is not a problem. It's a bit painful. A bit painful isn't a problem. A bit painful doesn't even need paracetamol. You need to be able to describe where your pain is and what it feels like. So what I do is when I work with people, obviously by the time we get to this point, I know a lot about them. I know a lot about their daily life because they've done the PIP entitlement assessments. I've already got that. And then I'm asking even more questions, a lot of Charlie questions, so that I can really understand what their life is. And I'm already getting to the point where I will know what is their worst part of their body by then. Then we've got to focus in on, what does pain feel like for you? And I'm not going to give examples here because this is a lot of PIP gold, okay? It's unique to you. But saying it's uncomfortable, it aches, it's sore, it's a bit painful is not good enough. You have to try and get it across to someone who is able-bodied what it feels like to be in your body and why walking is a challenge for you. Now, if you can walk 5-10 minutes, brilliant, you're not going to score. You're not going to score. If you're able to do that every day, I'm so happy for you. Okay, if you can do that when you want, that's brilliant. If you feel knackered and exhausted afterwards, that's fine. But sorry, that's not fine. It's obviously awful. I mean, it's if you can go for like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, then odds are you're not going to score because that's well over 20 bestsellings, I would expect, yeah? When it comes to fatigue, you need to be able to communicate what it's like in your body. You need to be able to explain. So, for example, after you've walked, if you rest for like an hour, could you do that again? I mean, if you can, I'm so happy for you. That's a big deal. Being able to do it again is huge. Or is it that you rest, you could do some walking, but not as far? You know, you need to know that about yourself. Okay. This is why this one is a very difficult one. You know, when we talk about aftermath, do you basically turn into a grumpy bastard after you've been walking? Do you end up snapping at your family because you've been moving around too much and you're exhausted and you're just done? Think about it from that way. Yeah. Do you have a worse night? Now, Pip doesn't care about sleep. They're not interested in sleep. But between us, this is important. After you've been moving around, if you've pushed yourself, is your night shitter? Is your sleep affected? Are you more grumpy the next day? Is your pain levels worse for days afterwards? A lot of people don't understand the aftermath, where they'll be like, oh, but I've got to rest. And I'm like, and then I'll look at the patterns because we work out patterns. And then I'll look at it and I'll be able to figure out the days. And then I'll be able to ask them questions about certain days. And they'll be like, yeah, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you haven't recovered. So it's really important that you are aware of how your life is impacted by this. Another thing that tells me a lot about people. So are you in your home? Are you doing what we call furniture walking, where you're holding on to things in your home when you move around? Is it like by the time you get from your bed to your sofa, are you like, have you got to push yourself to get to the toilet? And it could be like a lot of us get certain times of day where it's our best time. Yeah. So I was working with someone the other day and our big achievement, Hers was her big achievement on one of her best days was she could then empty the cat litter tray. Rarely. And I'm like, fucking hell, like, we need to do something about our lives. Mine is I've managed to pick up some dog poop. Woohoo! I'm so fit. Like, it was like, what has it got to? But for us, it's like a mega achievement. You know, those are the signs that we score. Okay? Right, a bit of a warning. Now, on the new review form, they changed the question about aids that we use, and they said, are you using prescribed aids? Now, in this day and age, most of us order something off Amazon, or we'll get something secondhand. Most of us are not using prescribed aids. If you break your leg, the hospital will extremely quickly give you some crutches. I have arthritis to the point where I've been sent for many x-rays in the first decade because the pain was so severe, it's like broken bones. Mine's really bad. Like, but so like the physio or in the x-ray department, they're like, oh, this is really bad. And then they're like, oh, it's just arthritis. Off you go. And I'm like, what the fuck? The pain is still the same, but no one gave me crutches. And then I was too stubborn, right? You know this thing where you're like, I am not using a Zimmer frame. I am not giving in. I'm not going to be a failure. I'm not in that category yet. I did that for over a decade. When I got a Zimmer frame with the seats, best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did. But it has to be when you're ready. Yeah. And I can't, when I work with clients, I'm like, please remember it took me over 10 years. So even though I'm saying we need to adapt because it improves our quality of life, it's got to be when you're ready. Okay, so try and be really honest with yourself. Sorry, on this prescribed aid. So what I'm saying with clients is, so I looked into it and I was like, who the fuck prescribes an aid? I get physios. Apparently GPs can, but I have never heard of a GP prescribing a walking stick. What the fuck? Occupational health. No, occupational therapists can give you aids. So your local council, you can contact them and have occupational therapists come round where they'll check your home and you could get free aids like handles. So I didn't know about this until I got PIP and I just saw it in the small print. So I contacted them. This woman came round. She was amazing. So she came round and she gave me a number of things, but they have a budget. But I'd already brought some stuff because I was struggling so much. And she explained to me about funding. She explained to me the reality check of ramps. She was so knowledgeable. It was amazing. So I really recommend you do that. Honestly, it's amazing. And then if an occupational therapist gives you aids, they are an objective medical professional. It really makes a difference in PIP. Now, when she gave me the stuff, she didn't go, oh, well, I'm not going to give you a Zimmer frame because you've already got one. But she's not going to give me one when I already have one because it's a waste of the budget that can be used for someone else. So the prescribed aids, if you're doing your review, and I've got a guide coming out about this soon. If you are using aids, I think we just need to ignore that the word prescribed is there at this point. So just write what you're using, okay? And then they'll want to get more information. But I would try and get yourself to a physio. And this is the other thing, if you go to physio, they're not going to want to give you an aid straight away. They're going to want to give you exercises. And for a lot of us, I don't exercise, I try and do movement. Exercise is like able-bodied people. It's the complete opposite for us. We need to not push ourselves. We need to pace ourselves and do the same amount every day and slowly increase. It's very difficult to actually get prescribed aids, in my experience, other than obviously occupational therapists. But most of you probably don't even know that. You don't even know it. I didn't. So in the review, the prescribed aid, just put what you use, okay? And we'll see, I'll let you know as I see the patterns on that. Possible aids, obviously, walking stick, prosthetic limbs, crutches. There's some amazing crutches where you can rest your forearms on them. And some of them even have this thing where you can bend your knee and rest your knee on it as well. There's some really good ones. Obviously, in your own home furniture, walking, things like that. You need to really pay attention and figure it out yourself. Yeah, based on the distances. Say, for example, one day a week, you're walking over 200 meters. You're going to the shops, you're going to like a big supermarket with your partner, and you're doing over the 200 meters. It's taking you like 20 minutes to walk around the shop. You are leaning on the trolley, you are stopping. Make sure you are clear what's happening the other 6 days of the week. Yeah, you need to do your averages and be clear about the aftermath. Okay, it's not about pushing yourself, it's not about what you could do. It's not like if there was a flesh-eating zombie, I would do everything in my power to get away from it. Right? That's not what this is about. Okay, it's about our current daily life. It's about what we're supposed to be able to do without suffering more before, during, and after. A bad example of this would be anything about it varies, sometimes, I try, I could, if I pushed myself, or writing about rare experiences. Any of that would just be shit way to write the form or whatever level you're at in PIP. So I'm going to read the examples that I put in the book. So physical conditions example, I cannot walk more than 20 meters before the pain is unbearable. I have to stop and rest before I can move again. Every time I walk, the arthritic pain gets worse in my right foot. Now, that is basic. I would expect like a bit of detail, a bit of PIP gold about what that pain feels like for you, because it's different for all of us. Okay. Physical conditions and fatigue dominated condition. I can normally only walk 30 to 40 meters as it immediately makes my pain worse. Then I stop and rest for a few minutes. I go to the supermarket once a week and I walk just over 50 meters. After doing that walking, I have to go to bed for the rest of the day. Okay, so you remember I talked about, I'm not sure if it was actually in this moving around one or if it was in another of the activities, about PIP guilt. So I've done examples like this where someone will say, we'll work it out and we'll work out the distances, and they'll be like, but Charlie, once a week I can do this. Once a week I can do this. What if they see me when I do this? And I'm like, we just tell them. We're just honest about it. That once a week you push yourself and you go further, but we've got to be honest that you fucking pay for it. Because that's not what it's supposed to be about. That you pay for it. You are in bed for the rest of the day, suffering, not able to move, not able to change your clothes, not able to prepare a meal. It's really bad. We're just honest. You just have to be honest. Obviously, the challenge is first with yourself. You've got to face reality of what our life has become. So, evidence suggestions, any photos of any aids that you have, any letters from occupational therapists or physios, or so, for example, sometimes when occupational therapists give you stuff, there's stickers on it, so you could take the photo to show that it's from the occupational therapist. Yeah, medical letters that state fact about your conditions. And to be honest, like for me, for like the form of, I've got severe psoriatic arthritis, and my treatment, the level of treatment I'm on, and the letters, it shows that I'm pretty fucked. Yeah, I'm fucked up. So you should have evidence from specialist on your condition and then treatment. Okay, your pain meds will also reflect a lot. Common mistakes, obviously not understanding where you score and ticking it varies or saying it varies or sometimes. Yeah. If you're like, none of my clients do that, thinking that wheelchairs and mobility scooters count as an aid. They want to know what we're like out of them. This is a really big one. People get it in their heads that because their condition varies or because they have a number of conditions that their life is so complicated it can't be explained in the right way for PIP. I'm really sorry, that's just rubbish. It's just rubbish. I've worked with hundreds of people with one condition to over 30 conditions. It is absolutely possible to explain your life in a basic, blunt manner so that they can assess you. And the DWP and ADP in Scotland, they have proved it time and time again that it is possible to clarify where you stand within the assessment. If you are sure that it's too complicated, you're going to screw up your own claim. Okay? I promise it is possible. So let's just have a look at possible scoring based on the way that I grouped conditions so you know what to prioritise or not prioritise, or where you might score. If your physical condition is only impacts your upper body, I wouldn't expect you to score here. If it's in your lower body, you could potentially score in any of these, so you need to work it out for yourself like we've discussed. If you only have a mental health diagnosis, you will not score here. If you have a learning disability, neurodivergent, ADHD, then you won't score here unless, along with that, again, there's a physical condition. If you have a fatigue dominant condition like CFS, ME, you could score anywhere within this. And it is harder because fatigue is the least understood, okay? But you absolutely need to be blunt about your life. Okay, and I would say we know that they prefer to score either physical or mental health. So if you have a fatigue dominant condition, but you also have a mental health diagnosis that really impacts your daily life, it might be that because they find it difficult with fatigue that they lean more towards your mental health if you score in that, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So in summary, this activity is looking at how far you can walk without your symptoms getting much worse, without needing to stop, and without major aftermath. It's only about walking on flat ground, and they're not interested in like weather conditions. It's about what you can do safely, consistently, and reliably. It's not about the one-offs, it's current daily life. An assessor, if you have issues with your walking, the assessor should ask questions in the areas like I have, like how does it feel when you move around? How long do you need to rest for? What does it feel like afterwards? Sometimes they don't. They might just do the can you walk down the aisle of a supermarket? You need to be really clear on small supermarket. It's only like a bus length. You've got to be really clear. Don't let them just zero you if your life is truly impacted. I need you to be aware of what I call PIP trickery. This is one of the areas where they will try and talk you out of funding. Even if your life is clearly impacted, your mobility is absolutely impacted by your conditions, they might try and push you to, well, could you? Well, could you do it? If you needed to, could you? Watch the PIP trickery playlist that I've got. So, you can check that. But again, knowledge is power. You must know your own averages so that you can state fact and then not get talked out of it because you know that, no, this is my life. This is what it's like. I hope this helps.